All right. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the University Place City Council for Monday, August 3rd, 2026. For those who are watching, those in the chamber, my name is Stan Fleming. On behalf of the University Place City Council, we'd like to welcome all of you. With that said, let's call, if the clerk would please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Figueroa.
Present.
Councilmember Boykin.
I'm here.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Here.
Councilmember Wood.
Present.
Councilmember Grassi.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McCluskey.
I'm here.
Mayor Fleming.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's move to item number 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to call on Councilmember Wood if he would lead us, please.
Please join me if you are able and rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I'd like to move to item number 4, approval of the agenda. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to amend the agenda to remove item D from the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, I hear you.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended, removing item number D from the agenda. And if I may also ask the Mayor Pro Tem if we can pull out item number F. Is that okay?
I don't see Amari.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thought that was going to happen later on.
Oh, we may do it again, too.
We can do it later.
You want to just do it right now and get it?
We can do that, too, and just keep it
Okay.
moving.
So I'll remake my motion to remove item D and 7F from the consent agenda.
Awesome.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda, removing item D and item F. Are there any objections to the amended amendment?
We're not removing item F, we're just pulling it.
Yeah.
For separate consideration.
Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. We have on item number 5 our presentation tonight on the 28th legislative update by Representative Mari Levitt. I do not see her here in the chamber at the moment, so with the council's permission, we will put that aside, and when she gets here, we'll circle back to that one. Okay? So we will keep the agenda moving tonight. We'll move to item number 6 under public comments. So now we're in this public comment portion of the agenda.
Point of order.
Yes.
Mayor, I believe that when you pull an item or items off the consent agenda, they have to be recognized as to why they were pulled.
I don't think so.
No, in this instance, because they were pulled at the time of the approval of the agenda, you don't necessarily need to do that. Now, and I think with respect to item F, I believe that there had been a desire to actually re-agendize that under the council consideration portion.
That's correct.
However, that wasn't part of the motion, but before we get too far afield, I think that's probably important.
Okay.
We jumped the gun on the motion on pulling item F.
Okay.
But thank you for making that.
Thank you.
Point of order.
May I?
Yes.
A point of clarification for me. So on the pulling of item 7F, we want it pulled for a consideration?
I believe it's for consideration. I'm looking at Mr. Eklund because that's his item. He's shaking his head yes. I cede to Mr. Eklund.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. So that will actually fall after we get to consent agenda under 7A and F. Okay. All right, so item number 6, this is our public comment time. It's an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments to the City Council about any items that are not appearing on the agenda or the consent agenda. So with that, we would open it up for public comment. If those who are on via Zoom or certainly can follow the instructions on the screen there. Do we have anyone on line?
No one online, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So is there anyone in the public here in the chamber tonight? And I do not have a sign-up list up here, so I am presuming we do not have anyone. Madam Clerk?
None, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we will close public comment and we'll now move to item number 7A, the consent agenda. I will call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as amended. In addition, moving the pulled item 7F into our consideration, number 7F.
Thank you.
For lack of clarification on the correct new numbering sequence.
We're still good. Is there a
Alrighty.
second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Again, removing item number 7F and holding that separately. Are there any objections? Hearing none, then the motion passes as amended. Let's move now to item 7F to consider. We're going to have a staff report from Mr. Eklund, our Public Works Manager. Jack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'm Jack Eklund, Director of Public Works.
Jack, could you speak in the mic? We can't hear you up here. I'm
I'm
sorry.
not sure. Do I need to?
Kind of almost eat it.
Do you hear me now, or is it?
No.
Do I need?
Oh, that's worse.
Okay.
Just hold
Let's
it
try
really
that.
close.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'm Jack Eklund, Director of Public Works. Tonight, I'm bringing to you for your consideration the authorization of purchasing a stormwater device from Contact Engineering Solutions for a hydrodynamic separator. It's in the amount of $203,925.10. And then this item, the reason I had requested this be pulled is at the time, this is the item that was associated with the down there at the Day Island with the storm drainage to address the stormwater management, to clean provide some additional treatment for the stormwater basin that had addressed some of the concerns raised by the Day Island Yacht Club. At the time of the consent decree that was issued, there was only, our understanding, there's one vendor that provided this device. And currently is still the only one vendor that we are aware of that has provided all the information that can provide it. We have a 18-month time frame to get this installed in accordance with that consent decree. And so that's why we have it in front of you as a sole source authorization and a waiver for competitive bidding. Now, the only reason I've asked to have this pulled is because earlier today we found out from another vendor that there may be another option. And now this option, normally they would probably be waived just because, well, we couldn't time frame, we probably can't meet it. But this, apparently this other vendor can provide a device potentially both at a more affordable price and at a quicker time frame. So I just want to put this big caveat on there that there is a potential that there may be something that wouldn't necessarily be a sole source now that this information has come. They have not provided us all the information or confirmed that they can meet all of the criteria that's in the consent decree. And so in order to meet our timing, we still recommend passing this item to authorize us to make the purchase. However, I want to make sure everyone has the understanding that if we find out in the next several days that this other company can actually meet the requirements, then we will likely be coming back in the next council meeting to have a different recommendation. However, if we don't authorize this one at this time, and this is the only one that truly can do it, we need the approval now, or else we wouldn't meet the time frame, if that makes sense. Because this is this more established vendor is one that deals in a concrete vault that takes a much longer, about a 12 to 16 week lead time. The potential new one could take it a 4 to 6 lead time, so that's where we have room to act if we find out we really could go with this other alternative. This is a bit unusual. We fully recognize that, and we definitely assure you that we wouldn't make the actual order until we confirm that this other vendor is not an option. But just timing-wise, and the fact that we aren't going to be having another meeting for a while, we still recommend the motion in the council bill.
Anything else, Jack?
That's it.
Okay. I've got just 3 quick questions, and then we're going to open up for council on there. Number 1 is, how is this thing installed? Who's going to install it? And what does it actually do? You mentioned that.
So it's called a hydrodynamic separator, and what it does is it will take it routes water, stormwater, through a large, like a 10 to 12 foot diameter structure, swirls it around in a velocity such that it actually separates out the heavier sediments, and to help reduce the possibility of any kind of sediment accumulation downstream. We're purchasing it ourselves for the material. The actual installation would be we'd go out to bid and have a contractor install it. It will require, when we do install it, it'll be located within 27th Street, down in the vicinity of Vista Drive. It will likely require a short duration of a road closure to be able to install it, because it's quite a large operation. And then in that case, we will have detours set up for when that occurs. And then we anticipate the total duration to be a couple weeks or so, but it's we try to sequence things in a way that minimizes that disruption.
Okay. And then lastly, this item wasn't in your budget for 2026. Where are you drawing the funding from for it?
We actually, in the previous carry forward, we did add the budget item. So it's in there currently as from the carry forward budget.
Okay. All right. Are there questions from council? Councilmember Grassi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Eklund. The lifespan of this apparatus, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it should be, if properly maintained, which fortunately we have one of the better maintenance crews for stormwater stuff around. At least I might be a little biased on that, but I think we do an amazing job. So when properly maintained, it probably has I would assume about a 30-year life. It could be longer, but the manufacturers give you like a 30-year kind of anticipated life frame. There's not necessarily that long a warranty provided, but overall, it's anticipated to have a pretty long, and maintained properly, it could far exceed that.
Okay, and we haven't worked with this other vendor option before, is that correct?
We have not.
Do they have any references of other municipalities?
They do. They've done a fair amount of work in California primarily, but the main criteria that we need to meet is to be on an approved, it's called the GULD approved pretreatment list by the Department of Ecology, and that's a fairly intensive application. You have to demonstrate a significant amount of performance and that you're a reliable company. And so this vendor are on that list. So although we don't have any specific experience with them,
comparable in their background.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Cunningham?
Yep, so once we determine if we're going to approve tonight, then you still have to determine costs from the second option that you got today, right?
Well, right now, and the reason I'm still recommending, because as of the actual information we have, right, because we don't have all the information, based on the information provided, Contect is the sole source that's available. And so until we get that additional information from this other vendor, or if they do or don't, we this is a sole source procurement, and so we would move forward with this pricing. If, however, in relatively short term, which they've indicated they can do it in about 72 hours, get us the information to demonstrate that they would also meet the criteria that's set forth in the consent decree, they would be then the more cost-effective and quicker option to get it installed. So it would no longer be a sole source, it would be back to kind of competitive bidding, and so we'd come back with a follow-up proposal.
So with your turnaround time and your timeline, and based on, the fact that we're not meeting for another month, I guess, after tonight, how will we be notified if you decide to go the other route? Because of course you're not going to be held 30 days waiting to let us know that to determine. I mean, because obviously you want to go with the best timing and the best price, right?
Yeah. Well, with this motion, the assumption is that this would be the price that we'd be paying.
Okay.
If the other vendor comes in, because they've given us a price that's probably in the ballpark of about $50,000 less, and at a delivery time of less than half. So that's why we have this kind of unique situation. That I don't like to be in this situation. I'd much rather have all the information, but the fact, I also feel irresponsible once we found out about this this morning. I didn't want to just disregard it. And
then we don't want to hold you up with the work with not letting us know, but we would of course want to know what you ended up going with.
Yeah, okay. But we definitely will give advance notice to council as soon as we know, and then we'll follow up in the next council meeting.
Thanks, Jack. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem McCluskey.
Thank you, Mayor. So Vista and 27th Street, is that at the Y where it's going to be installed?
I'm on vacation.
There is going to be an...
It's so generally it's in the vicinity of Vista and 27th at the end of where the City of University Place storm system ends. So we're capturing all the water that's coming out of the City of University Place storm system. And then it'll go into the Tacoma system.
Got it. Right. All right. And just a curiosity, did you go out to bid for this and you only had that one, or did you just offer it to that one? Because how did this other company realize that there was something going on and contacted you? So
we did our investigation based on the past performances of things and what's on the actual list from Ecology, because that's a pretty limited list of participants. So it's not open to, it's only the people on the list, and it's a very specific device, and it's a large flow rate, and so most of the other devices that are almost, at least from what we understood prior to this morning, all of the other devices couldn't handle that kind of flow rate that comes off of the 27th Street to be able to meet the required pre-treatment design flow. And then while we were just reviewing the list from the Ecology site, it was then we identified that there was this potential other one that hadn't been discovered before, and so then we contacted them, and then that's how we discovered that they possibly could meet that requirement.
Okay, the timeline for them sounds too good to be true, but I understand your dilemma now, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Boykin.
Thank you, Mayor. Jack, I have a question really about the process as I'm hearing more and leaning more into the additional comments that you're making. So let me first start with the expectation about not having a competitive bid, which makes sense. It's not unusual, but the City of University Place typically has competitive bids for the expectation of how we typically engage. When we do move in the direction of a sole source, if you will, we want to be absolutely sure about why it is that we've chosen those. And this is just the affirming for our public that the process that we have and the process that we follow have a lot of integrity in it, and it also has a lot of particulars to make sure that we've got the right identified vendor for the right reason. So let's lean into the right direction. When you moved into the expectation of this particular sole source vendor, can you affirm the things that actually elevate why it was that they were chosen? And even though I appreciate your conundrum, what might be most important to think about, since again there was a deliberate effort to ensure a sole source vendor was identified in this case for reasons that we should know are best positioned for City University Place. So if you could elaborate on those reasons, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of this is a unique situation because of that consent decree and the legalities associated with the dispute between the city and the yacht club. And that prescribed what both parties agreed to remedy the situation. So then the unique characteristics of this incredibly large basin. So it's a large amount of flow that comes, and so it really narrowed down. You had the performance criteria on one hand that we had to meet, and then also the amount of flow coming off of this. It's about probably over half the city area ends up coming to this location. And so the combination of those two, it just led, this was the only apparent company that could provide that device that was prescribed.
Thanks so much. No more questions, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Boykin. Any other questions, Council? All right, I have the last one, and Jack, this separator creates a lot of silt. How do you get it, and where do you put it?
So it will have to be, although at a much larger scale, but we would be able to still clean it with our Vactor system, and then any sediment that comes off we would put it in our Vactor bay to separate the water, which we're in the process of getting any water decant material to be able to be treated and go through the sewer system, and then any sediments would go in with our solid waste, similar to our in our catch basins and street sweeping and that sort of thing.
Okay. And then lastly, you had indicated that once it's been, the water, stormwater runoff has been separated from the silt, it dumps into the Tacoma system. Do we have an agreement with Tacoma to do that? I'm not opposed to it. I think it's kind of awesome, but...
So in general, it's because it was something we inherited ultimately from when the county got built, and actually it all historically, when it was all built, it originally was all the county. And so when Tacoma incorporated their section, because that was a later incorporation, the West Ridge, or now it's called the Boulders area, they essentially inherited the section the county built. And so then that had already the prescriptive right to move through. And the way the stormwater regulations go, as soon as you change municipal boundaries, the responsibility of conveying and managing the flow turns into that system. So yes and no, I guess, is the answer to your question. But but it's clearly it's more of a nature of state law and where water is has to go, and when Tacoma assumed that part from the county, they ultimately got the responsibility to maintain the section that they assumed.
I would just like to be sure that we have some clarity there so that we don't have to engage Matt again to go negotiate on behalf of the city.
And you're going to be engaging me anyway, because there's other pieces of this that will be coming back to council.
Oh, wonderful.
But you've already agreed to the big picture.
Yeah, and Tacoma is also, they are party to this consent decree, so they are in agreement with the course of action. So from the standpoint of that, they are with the consent decree, and then we are doing some additional agreements and
boundary line adjustments
that will further address their concerns, but ultimately they're party to this and in agreement as well.
Okay. You know, we're going to be voting shortly here on this hydrodynamic separator, but you also said you have this other deal going on the side. So if the council approves this tonight, do we have to come back then and undo this to approve for the other? Or is there some kind of an amendment we can have?
We would most likely have a superseding action. Yes. And as Jack indicated, given the timeline, it very well may be that we're making some phone calls in the next week or so asking for a special stand-up meeting with one item on the agenda, depending on the timeline between now and the first meeting in September.
Hopefully not, but
hopefully not. Possible. But we're covering our basis.
All right. So if that's the case and that's the scenario, do we really need to even take an action on this?
We're trying to avoid that scenario.
Yes.
So if
we got an item on the table right now.
No, but I'm saying we're trying to avoid calling the special meeting if possible. If we don't need to, if we find out that in reality this other company can't provide it, then we're already set. We can place our order and move forward without any additional action.
Gotcha.
If we do have to do an additional action, then we have to do an additional action anyway. And so we're trying to reduce that possibility, if that makes sense.
Well, it does, but, you know, thinking the council's going to be taking a recess here for the summer. That's why we're not having the next meeting. I'm wondering if it would make more sense, and I'll look to our city attorney here, it would make more sense to have one motion here that gives Jack the latitude, if he can get the better deal with the other item, just to move forward with it. By giving them approval tonight to do that.
Here's the problem. It's a time problem is what it is. It's the classic bird in the hand versus what's your timeline. We have a known, which Jack had talked about, which meets the requirement for the waiver of competitive bidding based on everything we know. Depending on what happens in the next bid, that might change, but when I was briefed on this earlier this afternoon, I reached the conclusion we kind of have to tell council that there may be this other piece out here that we might have to make another trip back to council, but we don't have enough information on that second piece. What we do know is that this first piece on information that we have and verify does meet that requirement.
Okay, so Matt, could the council just authorize the appropriation or the expenditure of the up to $203,925.10 for a hydrodynamic separator? So if Jack were to be able to cut a deal with the other company and get it for less, he's still home free. We could just say
he could do that. Just don't be surprised if you see a quick touch or some paper on an upcoming council agenda, just to make sure that that's copacetic, particularly from the auditor perspective. Yeah, it might be a receive and file, or it just might appear on the consent.
Yeah. I think that would make more sense.
So Matt, would you have a suggested change to the motion?
Yeah, we could just move to authorize you to expend up to this amount for the purchase of a hydrodynamic separator. So if you were to get it for less, great, the city will love you for it. But if you can't, you've got the amount of money you need to buy this one. And then you can do a receive and file when you get the other item.
Receive and file or something on the consent agenda.
Okay?
Yeah, and we would just rephrase the action. I'll frame it in the way so somebody can say so moved.
There you go.
Authorize the city manager or a designee for a purchase of a hydrodynamic separator in an amount not to exceed $205,000 with competitive bidding requirement waived.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded to authorize the city manager or designee to expend up to $205,000 with the competitive bidding requirement waived for the purchase of a hydrodynamic separator. Is there any further discussion, comments, questions? Seeing that there's none, then I got to make sure we do this right here. We'll call for a vote. Madam Clerk, would you just take
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Figueroa.
Yay.
Councilmember Boykin.
Yes.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Aye.
Councilmember Grassi.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McCluskey.
Yes.
Mayor Fleming.
aye.
Mayor vote results 7 ayes. Motion
Thank you.
carries.
Thank you. Motion does carry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack, for that report. You know, because time's of the essence, we certainly didn't want to tie your hands on that. Let's move now to council considerations. Item number 8, this is the Arts and Culture Advisory Commission. It's an ordinance amendment. We'll call on our city attorney, Mr. Matt Kaiser, for the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Matt Kaiser, City Attorney again. Before you for action tonight is a proposed ordinance following council's discussion at your last City Council meeting. As you may recall, at your last City Council meeting of July 20th, you held a study session on a proposed change requested by Mayor Pro Tem McCluskey as well as Councilmember Boykin to alter the composition of your Arts and Culture Advisory Commission, or the ACAC, and I will decline making my usual joke in these circumstances. The original proposal, just quoting from it for a second, that council had, would be in relevant part to codify a change to the structure of that commission, to recruit subject matter expertise for interested individuals with interest in growing that commission in the city of University Place who may not reside in the city. Those individuals would be known in the arts community and have established credible influence in arts and culture. They would take up to 1 but no more than 2 seats on the commission, therefore creating a majority of the seats will still be UP residents on the commission structure. One of the seats would be assigned to a culturalist and the other to a successful nonprofit with marketing, fundraising, and major event productions. So that's largely from your original proposal. What you have before you tonight is playing with my windows here, a draft ordinance that follows on that discussion, which would amend one section of the University Place Municipal Code. It's a section of code that you amended earlier this year when you originally created the Arts and Culture Advisory Commission. As you may recall, you had extended discussion on what the composition of the ACAC would look like, with 9 members. 2 of those seats would be set aside for youth. The draft ordinance that you have tonight acknowledges that of the 9 seats currently assigned, up to 2 seats may be set aside for those that have been specially identified as having that expertise, drawing largely or near verbatim from that proposal. You'll note as you look at the draft language, it is silent on resident, or actually it speaks to those individuals holding seats, notwithstanding other provisions, do not need to be residents of the city of University Place. You'll note by its terms, it is expressly silent on whether those individuals hold voting or non-voting seats. That was an issue that you had discussed. Has currently drafted, if adopted, those individuals would be voting members. One other thing, or 2 other things I think that's important to call out, and then I'll yield the floor for questions. The first is there was some discussion at the study session on what is a culturalist. You will note that this draft proposal does not attempt to define that phrase. That is a feature in the legislation, because amongst the 7 of you, the question then becomes, do you want to try and define it at the time of legislation passage or at the time of confirmation of an individual for appointment to the commission? As you may recall, under your current process, you have an interview committee comprised of 3 council members who interview candidates who make a non-binding recommendation to the mayor. The mayor then advances those names for nomination, and then a majority of council is required to make that confirmation. So certainly at the time of confirmation, individual could say that this person has the requisite degree of culturalistness. I made that word up, but we're going to roll with it for today, or not, without having to attempt to define it in legislation. The other thing I want to call out, which is not something you had discussed, however, from the sense of trying to administer this language, is that if these 2 seats, if council did adopt this language, in making a nomination, the intent would be that the mayor, in making the nomination, expressly calls out that this person is the culturalist or the individual who holds the marketing, fundraising, or production of the nonprofit piece. So that way, should those members cease to become members of the commission, we can still follow and identify, is this person, what spot do they hold, as opposed to somebody else who might remain on the commission to say, well, they have the requisite culturalistness, there's the word again, or not, without trying to play guess the bouncing ball member, as it were. With that, I will pause and otherwise yield the floor, because I suspect members of the council may have some questions. So we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. Mayor Pro Tem, is there anything you wish to ask?
Yes, there's it's not really a clarification, but just so the council is assured that it is only these seats assigned to non-resident if and when there is no expertise that is coming forward for the selection committee to review. And there is an option for a non-resident to apply. The other component is on our initial application for any commission, there is a slot for business. So to include businesses within University Place, even though the resident may not live within University Place, but they do provide the expertise of either a nonprofit or the culturalist. Culturalist could be, historian, librarian. There are schools actually for culturalists. And so you can get a degree in being a culturalist. And it typically is found in the Human Resource Department under organizational leadership and human resource development. And it's on the more strategic level of a corporate executive when they are talking about vision, mission, strategic goals, how all that aligns with their human resources, and to include all the things that we are currently now talking about as being part of the culture. It's not only a corporate culture, it is the culture of who their customer is. So in our case, it's our citizens, and they keep changing over time. New influxes come in, and others move out, so it keeps kind of a thumb on that sort of movement. And in that, there'll be a design of a cultural plan for 1 to 5 years. That's all for an annual review and updates as that moves forward. And the culturalists will be really strategic in designing that, unless we want to pay for an outside consultant, if we want to design a cultural plan. So Mr. Kaiser also defined culturalist, because culturalist is kind of in the ether a little bit, right? What is it? What does it do? And so he did an excellent job with his addendum, and I would highly recommend that in the change to our commission structure, that this be placed in it so that we don't lose it over time, and that when the selection committee or the interview committee comes together, they can read it, and then when they discover those expertise, they'll know it. And they will be able to make their determination whether that person is a good fit for the commission or not. At the bottom line, it is the choice of our mayor via the selection commission. So even if it is an outside resident that we feel does not have the heart and passion for University Place, they don't have to be selected. They're not, enforced to admitting them on the commission. And the other, with the help of Councilmember Cunningham, who did a great job in designing 2 questions for the selection commission, so that it dovetails into allowing that applicant to express some of the things that we're looking for in a culturalist and in a nonprofit administrator. So in that selection process, it's a very low-level, informational discovery to define who we want and who would be a good fit moving forward for the cultural direction on the Arts and Culture Commission. Because, as I'll state it again, culture leads to arts. Arts tells our story. They tell us our story of our past, of our present, the things we do really well, the things we do not so well, the things we need to improve. And it has a futuristic positioning on it as well. So if you go into any vibrant arts community, culture is at the heart of it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Boykin, as the co-sponsor, do you have any comments you'd like to add?
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2. The first, I want to make sure I say that I thought it was extremely important to expand the expectation of how to be providing opportunities for selection of expertise for this council committee, if you will. And in that, I thought it was extremely important to take from how to move forward by listening to folks who have been there, done that, and provided a modicum of expertise. I will just affirm that there had been an opportunity for Mayor Pro Tem to attend a professional conference in which this was really centered as part of what good engagement might look like to give us the best chance of being successful, knowing this was our first opportunity in this space. And so those recommendations aren't casual, and then the expectation of ensuring that we had the latitude to just be more successful made sense to me, to ensure that that had been more expansive in our opportunity to choose talent and expertise. So that is the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing I wanted to say is that as we look at the way of how we move any commission choice forward, we really do lean into the expectation of the process and assuredly that the mayor does have final say. But I'm hopeful that we don't take that process casually, that the opportunity for us to find our best selves and to move the best opportunity forward for an overall successful commission is what we're taking very seriously as our own individual charge, so that it makes it easy for the mayor to say yes, and it also makes it easy for your engagement and your specific way of leaning into the process that much more valuable. So,
thank you so much. Councilmember Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe we should have some added verbiage that states the first recruitment for this commission shall be for University Place residents only. At that time, if there's no, either both positions, or just one, either one, if nothing is found, then we can do a second recruitment outside of UP, inside of UP again, and outside of UP, to include outside of UP, to try to capture someone with that expertise. But I think that I don't want to pin those that have that expertise in UP to compete against outside UP non-residents.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. Well, and thank you. And the reason I think it needs to be verbalized and stated in here, because it's something that can be forgotten as time goes by. We could change council members and we don't know what the intent is, and then all of a sudden it could be a recruitment, and it's silent here as to the first recruitment being just UP residents. So that's why I'd like to have it on here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Cunningham.
Yeah, so somewhat what Councilmember Figueroa was saying, I just think that, we all had decided that our first pass was going to be, in district to start off. And being part of the selection committee, we already have about a dozen applicants, of which 4 are youth, just this week alone. So I just caution us to really look inside, because again, we have no data to support the fact that we don't know that we can't find what we're looking for in our city. And because we have such a significant amount of applicants, it's 2 days worth of interviews for the committee. I think that tailoring questions to be specific, because we have to give them an opportunity to determine if they have that level of expertise before we seek outside of our city. So I just think that we need to put some dates, some level of a timeline to determine the trajectory of where this goes after, because even if the committee finds that we, have maybe half of those, we still have to seek outside. I still think that we should give it a real college try before we determine that we go outside of our city to look for this person. And I think that tailoring questions to be specific, because whether they're in the district or out, we still need to determine their level of experience to determine if they'd be a fit for those said 2 seats. So I just think that we need to put some dates and some level of clarification around that, because we already got a significant amount of applicants for this new commission. So we don't know our own potential just yet. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I have a quick question, and I think I know the answer, but I don't want to assume I know the answer. If nobody with the requisite expertise applies to this particular commission, whether inside the city or without, do we have to hold the seat vacant, or can we put somebody in there so we have a voting member who is as close as possible to the intent?
Is that for
You know,
For whoever can answer.
Okay.
I'll take one stab and then I'll let Mayor Pro Tem do that. But I know, having sat on that committee before, we used to follow the intent, the spirit of what the council had in filling those seats. And when we couldn't fill them, then we did go and ask other candidates who may have applied even to other commissions if they shared in that interest. And if they did and they could articulate that, then we would fill those seats. So I think the spirit and the intent is there. I also believe in the committees, the committee members, and their use of their good judgment when they're looking at filling those seats. So I personally don't have any hesitation of trusting their judgment in terms of how they would go about doing that.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure we're not putting ourselves in a bind by saying we have to have one or the other.
Yeah.
And then the second one, and please humor me on this one, Ordinance 798, which actually established this, could you review the paragraph that said exactly what the purpose of this commission is, just for...
If you give me a few minutes, let me pull it up, because give me a few minutes here.
And while you're doing that, let me just explain my thought process so you guys can understand why I'm asking this. Because we're asking here for a culturalist and a marketing, fundraising, and other major individual with that kind of expertise, which on the face of it both sound like very good ideas, but I want to make sure we're not stepping too far beyond the bounds of what the original ordinance was asking for with this commission. And since I wrote it, but it's been well over a year ago since I wrote most of that, I would like to make sure that we're not going too far beyond the bounds of that particular ordinance. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay.
Actually, I had an answer for Councilmember Wood on that. What I've done is I've co-opted your screen. With the original language in there, there's one other provision I want to share with you here in a second. But since the question related to the original ordinance, there was a laundry list of functions associated with the original commission. Without limitation, it would include, and I'm just going to quickly go through this, encourage public programs to encourage the development of public awareness in the fine arts, provide recommendations to the council in conjunction with cultural and artist endeavors, provide council input on art displays in public spaces, advise on the acquisition and placement of arts in the new construction, review the suitability of artworks intended as gift, and encourage donations and grants, and advise the city regarding receipt of such donations and grants. So that's the language I believe, Councilmember Wood, that you were speaking of specifically with respect to the ordinance that council passed earlier this year. The one other thing I also want to make sure that is on council's radar, to making sure you do not get too far afield, to paraphrase your words. Because it is homed in your overall commission code, under your intent associated with not just this commission but your other 4 commissions, it has been codified that the commissions are exclusively advisory to the council and that they do not take independent action representing the city with other agencies and do not direct or duplicate the work. So just I want to make sure that that base is also touched as part of at least some of the assumptions associated with your question.
Good assumption. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. And for the rest of the council, if you're just looking to review the ordinance itself, it's on the following page of your booklets that you have here tonight. Mayor Pro Tem, you had some comments?
Yes, I think we're getting a little bit off base in regards to the residency requirement. It is only if there is no expertise coming forward. The essential piece that I came back with, and many meetings with the Americans for the Arts, as well as the National League of Cities for the Arts and their health and wellness committees, really indicate the need for a culturalist in this space to guide and question, and also to design the culture, the art culture within the city of University Place. That if you remember, when I sent everybody the initial information from the Americans for Art, it had a widget of 33 different components. And this is what arts and culture impacts, and it impacts everything. So, for example, like public safety, you click on the public safety widget and you get a whole white paper from Bloomingdale, and on that there's like another 15 or so hyperlinks into it as to how the arts and culture directly impacts public safety and its perception. And it ties into our health and wellness and those things. And if we can get on the right step with this culturalist in this infancy of the Arts and Culture Commission, we will be leap years ahead than any of the other art commission, the art commission that I have spoken with that did not think about culture being part of it. It's a significant role, and it's an important key role that we need to have that expertise. Now, we can design it, how we design it. We don't have to save a seat. I don't really encourage or recommend that if you have a lot of interested people in the get-go to do it. But we may want to consider hiring a consultant to do it then, especially I'm going to be circling back for a cultural plan for the next 1 to 5 years, because it's also in alignment with the arts and culture philosophy and how the other arts and culture collectives develop within a city. Port Townsend, Santa Fe, Albuquerque, I can mention a ton of them. The other piece to all of this is that we have a vibrant arts community here in University Place that's hidden. This Arts and Culture Commission, it will hopefully pull them out of the woodworks, and we'll just say what an incredible, amazing, talented people that we have, from poetry, some writing, gardening art, art that we don't think is art that they're doing out there. And also in 2008, Up for Art did investigate a report of arts within our community. And within that report, guess what? Is the need to identify culture, because culture leads the way. That's how significant and important that it is. If we don't have that expertise in the very beginning, we may have a little Achilles heel, not to say we're going to fail. We're not going to fail, because we're going to realize and we're going to figure out how to get that expertise. But I would be really remiss if I did not bring this forward and being so heartfelt in all the information and all the data and the research and the science about having somebody who has a cultural expertise. Port Townsend has a cultural expertise through their librarian. Santa Fe has a cultural expertise through the local artists, but also through their historians. They have a very, centuries-old culture, and they want to preserve it, but they also want to move it forward, so we'll have a modern vibe to keep the tourism going into Santa Fe. And that ties into their transportation system. It's culturally driven as well. And with that, I'll rest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would almost accept that, actually I would, as a soliloquy to this ordinance, to this amendment to the ordinance. So, well said.
You actually have no motion pending. I'm still on the hook for council questions.
Likewise, so thank you. I said almost.
Almost.
So, Councilmember Boykin.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to just be sure that we're not unintentionally conflating two ideas that are beginning to compete, because they really don't, they really shouldn't. Number one, about the residency expectation for any of our commissions, including this one to be launched. There's always an expectation to look here for residents and citizens to contribute, because we're always talking about City of University Place and it being a for us, by us product and engagement and infrastructure. So I don't want to suggest that anything that it is that's I'm intending on moving forward, the trade-off is let's not consider our residents and our citizens that actually would want to serve, as well as having the expertise to serve. Again, I will say that the goal was to ensure that there had been an expansive opportunity, number one, to ensure that we had the best chance of being successful. For the people who have leaned into the process and recognized what it takes to launch this in its infancy, there are some very specific things that have been prescribed as a result of being successful. In that regard, the makeup of the composition has come to the forefront. That's the only thing that is important in terms of the comments that I'm making tonight. I want to be sure that that opportunity and that expectation has a chance to move forward if for whatever reason we don't find that expertise inside the City of University Place. Because what is most important is this particular brand new commission serving the needs for the residents and the City of University Place. And we've got a really good opportunity to set that up well, and I want to be sure that we don't have any unintended consequences by removing the way forward in the best chance of being successful in that effort.
Yeah, so if I understand your question, and what you have, at least in terms of between the ordinance and your current code, there is some room for what you could perceive as ambiguity. And then the question is, has council actually takes up action on this ordinance, to what extent you wish to tighten it, as it were. So hear me through on this, and mindful of some of the other questions in terms of when do you want to do that, especially some of the discussions associated with the first round of interviews, et cetera. So the language that you have in front of you tonight sets forth, if adopted, sets forth who can serve on the Arts and Culture Advisory Commission. So, and it does not have the language in there that says if there's nobody else that's eligible or qualified to serve, et cetera. So if that's something that is important to council, an amendment in due course should be considered for that. As you go through that process, one of the things I do want to make sure and highlight for council, I will do a quick screen share for you. And this was touched on earlier. This is pulling up a portion of your code on your appointment process for the commissions. You're familiar with most of the language associated, or most of the process anyway, even if you're not familiar with the words associated with that, because that's your familiar committee process that we've talked about and that we've utilized a number of times. The key thing I'm trying to highlight for the council is subpart D of section 1.35080 of your municipal code, is that you have expressed an intent that in making appointments that the council should, note the should, seek to afford the greatest number of residents the opportunity to serve. Now, if you notice, it's a should, not a shall.
Sorry to interrupt you. Is there a way you can expand that? The council's having a really hard time reading it.
I'm playing with my windows here.
It's okay. You do that. You were on a great roll. So
I was on a roll.
I'm sorry to interrupt you on that.
Here's the language that we're focused on in terms of council intent. I'm not even touching it.
That's all right. Can you blow it up to 50?
I don't know.
72?
There we go.
All right. Can you all read that?
All right.
It's fine.
My apologies. But the point
Even
I
the
want
good
to
eyes can't see.
Right. Are we good?
It's fine.
Okay. The point I want to make, and this is in response to your question, Councilmember Boykin, is that how definitive do you wish to be in the course of making those appointments? Now, council has previously expressed that there is a very strong intent on making those appointments. Now, that same intent does not equate to a shall. It's a may. And so that's something that throughout the course of this current commission code, which dates back to 2017, you have generally adhered to. And when there are exceptions called out, you have done so expressly and specifically. We've heard about the business exception being the one in particular. This is another potential exception. So if that is a strong desire on the part of council. The language that you have in front of you in the ordinance tonight will need some additional language. Now, having said that, some of the concerns that had been identified, and I'm just flagging this since we're talking potential amendments before even the main motion has been made. How do you ensure that the first round you have adequate coverage for UP residents? There's a couple potential solutions. You could change the text of the language that's in front of you. I would not recommend that just because this is going to be a living document as we go forth. The second is you could amend the effective date of the ordinance. This ordinance has, with most of your other ordinances, takes effect 5 days after publication, which would be publication would take place sometime this week, so the effective date would be sometime next week. You could say that this ordinance will be effective, insert date here, recognizing that gives you ample time to go through initial round of interviews, whenever that might be. So you can make it January 1st of 2027 or some other date, just throwing a date out there. The third is you could take a wait and see approach. Would we move to table the discussion and then come back and potentially revisit it? All three of those options, and I'm sure there's a few more that I'm probably overlooking, are certainly at your disposal. But those at least alleviate some of the concerns I've heard. I'm not sure I fully answered your question for you, Councilmember Boykin, but recognizing that there is some ambiguity, and part of that is a discussion amongst the 7 of you. How tight do we need this to be for where we're trying to go with this particular commission?
Mayor, may I?
Thank you, Councilmember Boykin.
Mayor, may I comment? Yes. Thank you. I just wanted to say that you're spot on in terms of what my dilemma was, because I do believe that what we will do is entrust council members to make the best decision, and I don't know anyone here who would want to lead less than first taking a look at the expertise that we have here among us. And then the intent is to ensure that we've got the best people that we can put in a position so that we've got a very successful opportunity for our Arts and Cultural Commission. And I don't see that changing. So if there is something that I believe you said, I like the second scenario where we extend the date in which it actually becomes effective and let the process unfold as it will. I don't believe we necessarily need to put a shall in there, but if we do, we do. And then the last thing I would simply say is that the expectation of making an exception here, for me, for what I've heard and what precedent has already shown us, it would make sense, but it's only because I want to ensure that what we do have is the best chance of getting people in the place to have the most successful opportunity to be, as I've alluded to more than once, being successful here. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Boykin. Councilmember Cunningham?
Yeah, Matt, you answered my question, and I'm just for inserting it. I don't want to block the opportunities for us to, I don't want it to get too far down the line where we don't have an opportunity to bring it back and then get the quality of commission that we desire. So that's not the case. I just want to make sure we're prioritizing our residents and that there's ample opportunity. I mean, overall, it's hard to fill any of our commissions often because there's ebbs and flows in that. And I think that this is going to be no different. It's just a different attraction. It's going to attract different people. So I just think that, after the committee goes through these dozen applicants, then what? We just need to know what that looks like so that we have a fair shake at prioritizing our residents, So I think inserting a date would just be logical for us to give ourselves ample opportunity and runway to determine, did we really vet our city residents first and give them a real fair shake before we jump in and open it up to others? And that's just what I'm saying.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Councilmember Cunningham. Councilmember Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a simple wordsmithing. It appears to me that the emphasis has been over cultural to determine the arts. So why not name it Cultural and Arts Advisory Commission, since that's really the first place position? I'm just asking why not, since that seems to be the emphasis for the arts.
Okay. Question raised? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes. Arts and culture are on the same level, basically. It was initially an arts commission, and there was an addition of culture that was changed with the discussion going on. It doesn't mean that culture is less because it's in a second position on it. it's like parks and recreation. Is recreation less than parks? I don't think so. But you need parks to do recreation, maybe? Or not. You could use the schools. So for me, that's, that doesn't matter. It's in there. They're going to discuss it. Hopefully figure out the cultural plan, where we're going as a city with it. It is really interesting that this is not, and the wording is not, going to preclude any resident who has the qualifications from serving in this body in these positions. As we know, and as I have done multiple interviews, if we get the best fit, we may not get the exact person that we need, but guess what? They'll learn, they'll evolve, and they'll do it. Let's say the Planning Commission. We have several lay persons that, including myself, that was selected and placed on the Planning Commission. I'm from corporate America, but yet I was selected on it, and I understood it, and I thought I contributed to that. So, but in the areas that we want to focus on to establish the cultural component of our city, because there was a time 8 years ago where we asked, where are we going? Do we need to change our vision and our mission? What is the culture of Universally? How did that evolve? And we never really could tie that one off with a bow. So here's an opportunity that maybe we could figure that out and do it. And as I stated before, if we don't have the right expertise on staff or on the commission, we can either hire it in or ask people to come and give us advice. But it isn't as enriching if there was someone seated on the commission for all the grassroots conversations that go forward in time. And as we know, we have been on the selection committee interviewing, and we have said no to a few people or more because they don't fit the certain criteria. And this is basically what we're saying here. You can do it or you can't do it. And this just says, it doesn't say we must, but it's recommended to look for these characteristics, these skills and abilities, to place them on this particular commission. And because the culturalist is so specific, we may want to focus someone who has a little more maybe education in it, or coming forward with some experience with it. Like I had given out examples of, the librarian, the historian, someone who has human resource development in that high corporate level where they're looking at corporate culture, could have some identifiable knowledge, skills, and abilities to help the culture move forward in our city. So I don't really want everyone to get prickly over that we're going to exclude our residents from these two seats. That would really be hamstringing us along the way, because we would like a full-bodied commission. We have been hamstrung right now with our Parks Commission. There's been a vacancy for quite a long time, and hopefully they're doing fine. But we have that and several open seats on other commissions as well. So it's not to say that this is going to be exclusive. It's not exclusive. But to keep in mind when you are recruiting and you're asking the qualifying questions, who's the best fit for the culturalist? Who can we identify as with those skills and abilities that will lead the way? And that's all I'm stating here. It's not like I want to hold it for a non-resident. I don't. I want the skills and abilities, because I know from a lot of people that I've spoken with, this will make a huge difference if we have these expertise, whether it's in one person, whether it's in all 7 people or 9, I don't know. But we need to glean them somehow so that when they make their decisions, ask the questions, they have an awareness, or there needs to be some sort of training so they can do that. Just like on the Planning Commission, there's training as we move along. We have to ask qualifying questions ourselves. So this is the same as in any other commission that you're on if you're going to do an amazing job for your city.
Mayor, can I inject a point of order, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Wood.
We just had several questions/comments that have veered into the council consideration portion of the event. And as far as I understand, we're still on staff report and technical questions. Just wondering if we can get a motion so we can move on to the council consideration piece if we're ready to move on.
Yeah, I think we're almost there. And from my perspective, I really don't mind whether people ask questions here or ask questions when we get into that piece.
You will still need to call for public comment at some point.
That's right. Yeah. So, all right. Any other questions, comments people want to make? I think they've all been great. They've all been good. So this is the point where we will open for public comment. And I don't see any. So we'll close public comment. And with that said, now I shall call for the motion. I'm going to hold my comments until afterwards, but is there a motion? Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, well, I will make a motion to pass an ordinance of the City of University Place, Washington, amending Section 1.35.030 of the UPC, addressing the membership of the Arts and Culture Advisory Commission.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded to pass an ordinance of the City of University Place, Washington, amending Sections 1.35.030 of the UPMC, addressing the membership of the Arts and Culture Advisory Commission. At this point, are there any council comments? Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. So the discussion we've had so far, where I came in here very concerned about the residency requirement, and actually thank you, Mr. Kaser, for showing that verbiage that said actually every council could theoretically, or every commission could theoretically have a non-resident, because that's already in our code. And that hasn't been an issue to date. So I am less concerned about that now than I was, and that will not stop me from supporting this idea. I do have a concern that I don't think we need to address as part of this legislation, but I want to voice it for the record. Bringing in an individual with experience in marketing, fundraising, and major event productions, I agree that the expertise would be valuable, but I want to be very careful that we have that line clearly delineated, that they are advising, not doing. They're not taking over a role of fundraising necessarily, unless so directed by the council. And I just want to make sure that we watch it as we go forward, because I can see that become a potential source of conflict, either with city staff or with council later on. Because yes, the expertise is nice, but I want to make sure the role is very clear. And that's my only comment. Thank you, Mayor.
I think those are great comment, and I believe the language of our ordinances and the intent of all our commissions is very clear about that. So. Yes. I feel good about that. Councilmember Grassi.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the discussion on the dais this evening. I think it's been robust. and informative. Thank you for the expertise as well. I look forward to supporting this. I just want to say thank you in advance to our citizens, residents, and possible non-residents that may serve on this commission. I think it's, at the end of the day, we're talking about individuals that are taking time out of their schedules to volunteer their time to make our city better in this way and putting in their expertise, whatever their address may be. And so I just want to say thank you in advance. I think they're going to make our city better, and this is a great step forward. So looking forward to getting it off the ground. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember Cunningham.
Okay, so once again, what is the timeline for this? I think that the only way I'm able to support it is if I understand what the turnaround time is to when we're going to open this up. It can't be fluid. I don't think that's productive for the committee that interviews them. I don't think it's productive for any of us to determine, you know, today it's non-residents, tomorrow it's residents. So I think that there needs to be some level of a date to determine what we do next, because we're not always, the committee needs to understand when we put that forward. So I think it would be, you know, a little kind of reckless of us to not really have a timeline against when we're doing this.
Yeah, my understanding, as the city attorney advised us a little while ago, that once an ordinance is passed by the council, it becomes a law, if you will, within 5 days, unless we change that.
5 days after publication, unless you set a different date.
Right.
So, and to address your concern, Councilmember Cunningham, an amendment would be in order to the body of the ordinance if you were inclined to adjust the timeline.
Okay.
Such an amendment, you could request a motion to amend Section 5 that the ordinance would be full force and effect, insert date here, or on or after, insert date here.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, seeing that there's none, I just want to kind of weigh in here a little bit. And this has been a great conversation. I really like to say that. Great points made by both the pros and cons for this particular amendment. And as I kind of listened to it, I kind of thought, yeah, this makes sense, that makes sense. The thing that reminds me, though, is the fact that, you know, we all have run for our particular offices because we all share a passion, and that's for our city, and ensure that what we always decide and do here is what's best for our citizens. You know, within that context, we have a subcommittee of the council that we have appointed and that we trust to do what's right at the end of the day. And, you know, for the tenure that I had on that committee, I truly appreciated, you know, the support of the mayors at the time and the council members of giving that committee the latitude and the trust to do what's right. And so I'm always hesitant to want to tie hands of council members, and I've got to believe and trust that the wisdom that they apply when they're interviewing candidates and nominating candidates, I should say, you know, for the council to approve, is always in the best interest of the city. I'm always, first and foremost, when we look at candidates, is do what's right. Number one is, if we have that talent within our city, those are the candidates who I like to put forward first. If you can't find that talent, and as several people said tonight, we've got voids on our commissions because we can't find that particular talent, then I think it's okay then to look beyond that. But we should never tie that committee's hands in looking at what's in the best interest. So I don't have any qualms in supporting and moving this initiative forward. But I think everyone has the right heart at the end of the day. So, seeing that there's no further comments, I would like to call for a vote at this time.
Mayor?
Yep.
A quick question, comment.
Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. Just back to Councilmember Cunningham's comment, do you have any desire, what would be the right date for the committee if we were to make an amendment to this tonight? Is there one that's better than 5 days after publication?
I just think because historically, filling the commission seats, as they alluded to, I mean, Parks has been vacant for 6 months, 7 months now. So I think because it's such a slow grind to get all of the commissions filled, I think we need to give it a good shot. So I'd say at least the remainder of the year or in January. I'm just saying that we don't know what we're going to encounter this week alone with just our interviews. I'm just saying, with the level of, marketing that we do, the promotion of the things that we have going on, everything is always kind of hit and miss. And I think if we give it a real fair shake, we'd have to give it a little bit of time to determine what that looks like. And then I think that we armed ourselves with thoughtful questions that can point directly to that, that could potentially just get us to that point. This is a very new commission where, word of mouth is happening. We're talking about it a lot. It's been promoted. But I think given our history of how things kind of percolate and materialize, we just need to give it a little bit of a shot. So I'm saying, let's just give it till January, or give it to, the fall or the beginning of winter, whatever, just not 5 days is what I'm saying, from the moment that this goes into publication, and then next week it's open to the others. So that's what I mean. I'm just thinking that, just based on historically how it tends to go with commissions. I mean, we've interviewed for parks for a while, planning sparsely, and all the commissions are just getting a closer perspective and view right now. And we're looking into what that looks like, and there are some vacancies, there are some things that need to change, and we're looking at what that looks like, but it's a slow grind, and I think that we need to be thoughtful about that and just give it a little bit of time.
I think, you're right from the perspective that, we want to get it right. I think that by putting off a date out into the future might take away that committee's opportunity, if they have the right candidate and they go, this is the person we want now, and I don't know, I'm speculating, you would not be allowed to recommend that person.
Sure, I understand.
So, I would say that, allow the ordinance, my suggestion would be to allow the ordinance to go into effect. Let the committee do their work. If they have the candidates, great. If they don't, your hands are not tied, and it gives you the flexibility to move forward. I would really hate to say, well, boy, we had the right candidate, but now we're going to lose him because we got to wait till October or January or who knows when to make that happen. So I think we've got a good process in our city that allows ordinances to take effect, and then let the committee do its job. That's what I would advocate for. Mayor Pro Tem, you had a comment?
I was going to say the exact same thing, so I will.
Okay. Seeing that there's none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Figueroa.
Aye.
Councilmember Boykin.
Yes.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Aye.
Councilmember Grassi.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McCluskey.
Yes.
Mayor Fleming.
Aye.
Mayor, vote result 7 ayes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's move now to item, that was a great debate, and I appreciate everyone's engagement. Let's move to item number 9 on our agenda. This is the city manager and council reports and comments. Mr. Sugg.
Well, thank you, Mayor and council members. As we continue the city event season after a wonderful Movie in the Park 250th birthday celebration on Saturday night, we look forward to tomorrow night, the National Night Out. 45 neighborhoods, I understand, have been signed up, and we're going to be visiting those neighborhoods with the fire and police, and you all know about that, and meet at 4:30 in our police department. And then we'll move out from there. Then Wednesday night, which is the August 5th, out here on Market Square from 6 to 8 is another Music on the Square concert. Mark Hurwitz has his band. He's also the booking agent for the booking of the other bands, but he also has his own band. So he usually plays one of the concerts, and he will be there on Wednesday night from 6 to 8. The Thursday is a concert in the Orchard. It's not every Thursday. I believe it's every other Thursday. So anyway, this Thursday, August 6th, from 6:30 to 8 is in the Orchard is going to be a fantastic concert. I can't remember the name of the band, but it's
Rock and Roll Magic.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And with that, I'll conclude my comments. We're not done with events yet this summer, but it continues on, and I'll turn it back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Steig. Okay, council. Let's just start down here at one end with Councilmember Boykin, and we'll roll through the council.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just center community engagement and continue the theme of our city manager having share with us what's going on. So my what, so what, now what thought process is that community engagement has been very important. It hit me differently this summer. It made me want to see what I could do in terms of being more impactful in terms of one-on-ones, as well as the expectation of how it is that might move different agendas forward. I've really enjoyed how that has a different approach for me at Music on the Square, for example, in the current Apple Orchard concerts, the conversations as well as the fun that people have told me that we've enjoyed together has hit me again, as I alluded to, a little differently. It's also led to some different ways of being close and personal when it comes to folks that have vested interest in how they see the city of University Place and how it can move forward. Better, Different, Special. That's got me on a couple of opportunities to walk and join other members of community and get their perspective of how they see the city, why they see the city a particular way, what nuances are actually in play that actually promote the wealth and value of our city. That hit me in a way that made me feel really in tune with how it is that we can be better leaders in this capacity at the dais. And so I'm excited about what that means as I think about what is going forward tomorrow in National Night Out, and just want to continue elevating that spirit as we celebrate 250th very intentionally as we go forward. That's all I have in terms of comments, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Boykin. Councilmember Cunningham.
Yeah, just echoing that for sure. The energy's exciting in the summer. So just coming off of a couple of great ribbon cuttings that we were able to be a part of, that was exciting, to Osaka Korean Barbecue, and then Flourish the Skin Studio. That was exciting, and to hear their whys of why they chose University Place is really profound and exciting. And I know Abby at Flourish was excited to be part of us, and she relocated to University Place. She used to be on South Tacoma Way in Tacoma, so it was a pleasure to meet her, and she's excited at where she lives from a residence, and excited, how quiet and serene it is where she picked her place to be for business. So it was exciting to be part of that and to see other commissioners there, and of course our fellow council members. And same with Osaka Korean Barbecue. So that's been great. And then we toured Habitat for Humanity, one of their sites over in South Tacoma, Mayor Pro Tem and myself, and that was enlightening. And it was provoking in a lot of thoughtful ways, and we're excited to just kind of see what comes of that, and what the good work that Habitat is already doing in our surrounding county, and what potentials lie ahead in the future. So it was great to see potential for home ownership, for community members, and then the different varieties of housing that they have. So excited for what that looks like, and they ask us pretty provoking questions about what we're doing in our city and what we have done in the past. And we want to be able to say that we've contributed to that in a lot of ways. So we're excited about what that could potentially look like. So it's been a really good couple weeks of just connecting with business owners. Of course, Movie in the Park was a total vibe, I thought. It was so fun, and it was exciting to have such thematic 250th. I loved, and I heard that people just really loved the variety that we had at the day. If you came for the movie with your family, then that was exciting. But if you came for the beer garden and the bands, that was also exciting. So it just created a whole day full of, different varieties, and you can see people coming and going as the activities suited them. So it was fun to be a part of it. Thank God the weather held up for us. I understand now why we didn't have the hot air balloons. At first I didn't, but when my hat was blowing off, I totally understood. So it was great. So it was a good couple weeks for UP. And of course, it's our 31st birthday, so here we are. That's all I have, Mayor.
Totally awesome. Thank you. Councilmember Figueroa.
No reports, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Wood.
I just wanted to first thank city staff and everybody who's involved with the 250th celebration. That was an amazing event. And I will say that there's so much good stuff. There's the bands, and I talked to people, and they're engaged, they're having fun. What actually made my heart warmest was looking at the hundreds of kids on that playground. Thank you, Chris, for the work you did in that, and thank you for the community who supported it, staff who did the work. That was just an amazing event, and I just love seeing that place put to use like that. It was perfect. My comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Great comments. Thank you. Councilmember Grassi.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo the excitement to welcome our new small businesses into the community. It was great to be at the ribbon cuttings with Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Cunningham for Osaka Sushi and Flourish. You know I love to see new businesses open in our city, so I'm thrilled that we got to welcome them. I want to thank Wesley. He's doing a great job in his new role in economic development, so thank you for all of your hard work. Also echoing what Councilmember Boykin alluded to earlier, got to go on a walk with Councilmember Boykin and community member Oscar, and as we did a litter pickup around the city, so that was wonderful. And you know that I have a passion for cleanliness and beautification in our city, and so that was a great time and eye-opening, and thank you for spearheading that. I love meeting with engaged citizens, so thank you. I also had my URA leadership group meeting, United Regional Approach to Homelessness with the county. They are looking forward to presenting with Chair Hitchin on September 8th, so I'm looking forward to bringing that forward to council with their presentation. It's been a lot of work, coordinated efforts around the county to have a unified regional approach to homelessness, and it's been encouraging to see other cities sign on to the resolution, Gig Harbor, Lakewood, Tacoma, and others that are forthcoming in the coming days. So looking forward to bringing that to council. A lot of hard work. A lot of people have been passionate about that. I also want to make note that the Farmers Market in University Place has a new home. It's located on Thursdays from 3 to 7 at our church parking lot, 5067th Avenue West. Just was not getting the visibility in the back of Curtis, and so we got our heads together, and they've had their first week there, and they did more business the first 45 minutes last week than they did the whole time over at their previous location. So vendors are happy. Lots of room for the kids to play, playground. So I encourage you. They take EBT, and it's a great way to meet our local vendors. So many sold out of their goods last week. So Farmers Market, Thursdays, 3 to 7, corner of 67th and Cirque. And I also, of course, like my colleagues, had the excitement of being at Movie in the Park. What a phenomenal day. I want to thank our public safety team for keeping it safe. I think people felt safe, that they could meander around and their kids could play. That's a huge benefit to our community that's unique to University Place. And as a mom specifically, it felt well cared for. So thank you to our public safety team, our staff for creating that environment, to the bands that played. And as part of my small business highlight, if you were there, you saw the kids market. And one of the businesses that were at the kids market is Origami Zeus. And Zeus is an incredible elementary student right here in University Place that started his own origami business. I met him teaching origami for the first time at Tacoma Rescue Mission to kids that were housed at Adams Street Family Shelter. So he started with a heart just to give kids that are experiencing homelessness an activity to learn, and now he has created a business, and he's sold out of all of his Summer Blast editions. He also gives lessons to kids for pay what you can lessons and different. So Zeus, if you're watching, I am so proud of you. He is one of the best young entrepreneurs in our city and gets my small business highlight this evening. So excited. I'm going to learn origami. So I'll have gifts for all of you next time. And finally, it was such an honor, and it was the first time that I've ever been asked to speak at a promotion ceremony for Colonel Kelly Beacon, and it was such an incredible honor. She is a well-esteemed colonel now in the United States Army, and has done 2 residencies, Dr. Fleming, and 3 tours. And as one of her highlights of her stories, setting up a field hospital for Afghan refugees, postnatal, prenatal care, and her resume goes on and on. But she is some of the very best of University Place, and it was such an honor to be asked to be a part of her promotion ceremony. So that is all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
You warm my heart. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. In regards to keeping University Place beautiful, there is a discussion going on with our grassroots community citizen Oscar, myself, and the Rotary at the current apple orchard. That is highlighting one of my favorite bands in the area, Rock and Roll Magic. If you like the Beatles, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s tunes that you can dance to, you know, it will be a fun, family-friendly event there. And with a discussion with a few people on how to make University Place even more beautiful. And I'm excited to hear that because the Rotary has been picking litter up in our city for quite a few years. You know, they dedicated one day, and so now we're just talking about how we can improve it, make it better, and make it maybe a cultural change where everyone will think about, you know, keeping their litter to themselves until they find the proper receptacle instead of just, you know, letting it dump on the ground. Or if they see a litter as they're passing by, maybe, you know, bend down and pick it up. That's also good exercise, and it also helps the environment as well. So more on that after Thursday. So I'm really excited not only to be at the current apple orchard here in the band, but also to how to improve the beautification throughout University Place. I had the opportunity to go on the Master Builders elected field trips. I love these field trips. Every time we field trips to go to see infrastructure, I'm there. And so this was talking about two projects that are at ground level. One is in pretty, you know, it's in the infancy stage of the development, and the other is getting into the construction and talking about affordability and how they have been struggling throughout this whole process to keep the affordability as they move forward with the construction of these townhouses and all the constraints, setbacks, safety requirements, and also there is a cultural survey that they have to do for the Native Americans. And so, for example, one site had a level 3 of the cultural awareness, and so they had to dig within 3 feet of each other, holes down to the bedrock. Unfortunately, the bedrock was really close, 3 to 5 feet down, but they had hundreds of these holes all over to ensure that there is not any Native American artifacts. And then all the tribes that are impacted by it, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's more, will have to do a written statement of approval before that site could move forward with that. Our current house had to go through this process for the approval of state funding to get an HVAC system installed in their house. They had to get approval of 7 tribes for that one. So all those things come, you know, it exponentially increases the cost of what we initially thought would be an affordable site. And so at the very end, it may not be affordable housing that they're building, it might be market rate. But hopefully, they're trying their best so that they can have a great entry-level home. It more than likely will not remain affordable over time, but at least they're hopefully trying to get into the housing market, and they're trying to keep the houses in the low 400s, but they're looking at the possibility that it might be in the 500 or more. So hearing those struggles is kind of disheartening, especially when we're talking about, you know, shape and homelessness as well. And I want to give a shout out to our Trader Joe's, because at the Master Builders, the CEO, Gretchen, said, if you have a Trader Joe's in your city, you are like 5-star, because they are so hard to get. They look at all kinds of different criterias and factors in it. So don't take our Trader Joe's lightly. And they have now one of the best stores, I believe, in the Northwest. So they are So we should be exceptionally proud of that Medal of Honor that we're wearing Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. So movie in the park. Well, I'm not going to duplicate some of the amazing comments my fellow colleagues made, but I want to give kudos to Mayor Fleming for his opening remarks that just set the stage of why we're there for the 250th and what freedom really means, and celebrating our very young city as well on their anniversary of the first Saturday of August, and also the additional honor of celebrating our nation's 250th. And then the Council Rules Ad Hoc Committee met, and I am so excited to be part of that Ad Hoc Committee. It is, you get down in a lot of data and research and comparison analysis, and the council members there are so thoughtful with really intricate questions, so that we are looking at designing maybe an ethical guideline, council's direction to encourage respectful behavior, possible actions, policies and procedures that we're missing, and much. Yeah, we didn't need it, but, just in case we would have it there. It's like a safety net for fellow council members and councils coming into the future, not only the council members on this dais. And so it's a reflection and also a much needed improvement. And thank you to our city attorney, Matt Kaiser, leading the way and keeping everybody in check and adding some good things to it as well. This Saturday at 4 p.m. in our atrium, Dance Theater Northwest Showcase. If you have never seen one of their performances, led by the creative director, Melanie Christopher, I highly recommend it. It's a little mini Broadway production in our atrium. And also a reminder that Pierce County Conservation will have their work day. Once again, I believe this is the third or fourth one at Adriana Hess from 10 to 12. They're working on getting rid of the invasive species, and also encouraging natives and doing some other wonderful conservation works within our own city park that is dedicated to birds. And with that, I will relinquish my floor. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you for those kind words. I'm going to reiterate some things because I think they're really important to highlight here tonight. And I'll start out with the 31st birthday and the 250th celebration. And to Steve Sugg, our city manager, the staff hit that one out of the park. It was hands down, I think, one of the best put together, best orchestrated, best executed events that I think I've seen in the city in a long time. The feedback from the citizens was incredible, and I don't recall ever seeing Cirque Park packed like it was packed, for that event. I know the giveaways the city council members had were amazing. Everyone loved them. I loved watching the council members with their hats and going about the crowd there. But it was in every way imaginable. It was fantastic. It was so great. I think we ought to do it again next year, and year after year, and build on that. The citizens loved it. I can't recall a time when you see so many people dancing and so many people interacting and engaging. It was phenomenal. The only thing I would say is we got to work on the parking, but short of that, it was great. I also just want to highlight for citizens that are watching or listening, tomorrow, big night in the city for National Night Out. I believe we're going to be out visiting roughly 32 communities, or 45 communities, the largest ever, and certainly I think it's the largest in Pierce County, as I recall. So that is fantastic. And then again on Wednesday evening, the music on the plaza. here at the City Hall, I think is something great to be looking forward to on that. So just want to, let citizens know there's so many great things going on here in our community that there's something for everyone. To the Mayor Pro Tem, thanks for mentioning cleanup in UP. This is our community. It's not the dump. And I can tell you for the times that I have participated in cleaning up and walking our streets, and you look at how much garbage is along the sides of our roads, I think we as a community can do better. And so I applaud, what y'all are putting together with Rotary to make that happen and ongoing. So those are kind of the biggies. I do want to let council know I did attend the Puget Sound Regional Council meeting. Just a couple of highlights from that. They voted on admitting Port Gamble's Clallam Tribe as a member to the Puget Sound Regional Council. And they also approved over $22 million of transportation funding for rural town centers and corridor programs. Those are the highlights of that. And with that said, I think we can close our reports for tonight and then move on, if you will, into study session. We're going to recess to there right now, and we'll continue with item number 10, which is our 6-year transportation improvement plan. Mr. Eklund, our Public Works Director. On the agenda tonight, it listed you as our Public Works Manager as well as our Public Works Director, so you can tell us which one it is and what's the difference there. But Jack, you're on.
I am the Public Works Director. I'm not sure what the manager would be, but I wear enough hats, it's probably the same thing, so it's probably fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. As we mentioned, I'm Jack Eklund, Public Works Director, and tonight I'm bringing to you for study our annual update for our 6-year transportation improvement plan. I would like to direct to you in your council packets a copy of the spreadsheet indicating all of the anticipated projects as well as the schedules and estimated costs of each of those. We also have in your packet an updated town center grid map plan. This one we have updated in a way to show our current planning to reflect what those projects that are on the tip. But then also we have added in green, you can see it highlighted, the portions of that grid that have been completed, and it shows that we have done quite a bit, but it also gives the full picture of what we're trying to accomplish with the grid plan. So now the 6-year, the City of Union Place is required every year to annually update this 6-year plan by state law. This current plan covers the years 2027 to 2032. The primary changes in this year's plan is we have removed this UP School Crosswalk Improvement Project because that one's currently underway and will shortly be completed. So that's always a good feeling when we're checking one off the list. We also have updated the status of the Chambers Creek Road Roundabout project, in which we received the additional federal appropriation of $300,000 thanks to the efforts of Representative Strickland and her folks. And then we have the schedule for the right-of-way acquisition associated with the Drexler Drive South project, and that's one of the projects that is on that town center grid map that I mentioned. That has been updated and elevated due to priorities to be changed up to 2027. And then in addition, we have updated the various costs and schedules of all the other projects on the list. Now, I do want to remind you that approval of the 6-year transportation improvement plan does not commit the city to any financial expenditures, but rather each project will be reviewed and individually by the City Council in each relevant budget cycle as a component of the adopted budget and CIP, or capital improvement plan. But the approval of this 6-year plan does provide an indication to our neighbors of and residents of our transportation planning needs, and also creates eligibility for us in various grant opportunities. There are most grants, especially transportation grants, require specific projects to be noted on our adopted 6-year plan. So with that concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Jack, I have just one. I used to sit on the committee at the county when we looked at funding for various transportation programs, and in that committee we would prioritize, how we would support those and fund those. I was looking at your list here, and I don't see a prioritization in that. Can you explain that, or help us understand that better?
So that's an intentional aspect of our tip, because nowadays, just with the nature of funding, a lot of time the priority becomes where we can get the money from. So ultimately, we have many needs. Now, some are more significant than others, but we don't want to imply that something is less important when we're applying for a grant or something that could maybe put us in a bad position or a less favorable position. So these aren't particularly, they aren't prioritized in any given fashion. It's really just we want to strike the iron when the fire's hot and make sure we can take advantage where we can.
Much appreciated. And again, looking over the list, I really agree that these are all major, significant improvements for the city overall. You and I have had multiple conversations. I'll put that plug in one more time. When we have roads that are majorly failing, we need to look at how we're going to support those. I see the Day Island Spit Road on here. I would sure love to keep that one high visibility, keep it high on the list as we get funding to get that road repaired before we lose it. So. Yeah.
And one thing that we have spoken about in the past too on that project, right now it does show the kind of the ultimate, it would ultimately need a road rebuild, but you also, because you could include interim improvements as part of that project as well. So the fact that it's on the list showing the bigger project doesn't preclude us from also doing incremental improvements as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any questions for, thank you, Councilmember Grassi.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Eklund, for being here. Just a question/comment as well. When I'm looking at, our 44th Street project, 67th to Alameda, eventually the Regents Boulevard project, and work a lot with our counterparts over at Faircrest and for funding requests together and all of that. I think historically we used to have a regularly scheduled meeting with Faircrest. Did we not at one point in cityhood? I would just love to see us consider, in light of these projects and other things, reconsidering putting that back on the annual schedule. I think it could be very helpful as we're looking at these projects that we want to do together. It's just interesting to hear my counterparts over at that city may be thinking some of these projects are farther down the line than what I realize they are, and vice versa. So if we're pulling our requests, funding, all of that, it might be worth considering going back to that.
Yeah, I think your point's well taken, and we've had some conversations with the city manager over there about perhaps having a joint meeting where we can put our heads together on some of those things. So, well said.
That's all. Thank you. Thank you for the report.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Do we have full funding for the Chambers Creek roundabout, or is there something missing?
We do have full funding for it. It has a combination of, we have two separate federal appropriations. Those total $800,000 themselves. We have $800,000 of construction funding from Federal Highway Administration. In addition, we have, I believe it's $200,000 of design money from FHWA. Both of the FHWA projects were administered through PSRC and ultimately WashDOT. And then in addition, we have about $400,000 in traffic impact fee funds that are contributing to the overall project. So right now, we do have not all the funding, although the funding's been awarded, it is only available in certain years, and so likely that's going to be a 2028 project based on when we would have the funds available. But it is from capital projects, that's still pretty close. So it's exciting that one is very close to getting to the finish line.
Yeah, that is especially exciting for that one. Did Pierce County allow us to have some other easements so that we could complete the roundabout as we had designed it?
That has not been executed yet, okay. But both staff and the our council member Ayala has indicated that that's something the county is moving forward. They're supportive of it, and they should be getting, we're anticipating a schedule of that hopefully pretty soon. So we keep pushing that. And it's not necessarily the highest priority for the county. You know, they have a lot of things going on, but it is something we continue to chase, and they are very, they've indicated they're very supportive of it.
Right. Is there any movement on the Chambers Creek Bridge with partnership with Pierce County?
Right now, the county is still working on refining the designs, and then it's a pretty, there's with the bridge, and then you have the dam that's also being looked at, you know, kind of removal of the dam and realignment of the creek and channel, and so it's a pretty significant project, and the county is taking the lead on exploring funding options for that, and so we've indicated to them that we are, you know, we're interested in being a partner with that. You know, obviously when it comes to money and what kind of match, we'd have to be notified early, and if, you know, if we can commit to any of that. But we definitely want to make sure the communication's there, and we often remind them that, you know, we're here to support them however we can.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. And my last question or comment is that I noticed that in the tip there are some streets that do not have the cooling options, like you have streets, sidewalks, gutters, but there isn't any landscaping. So looking at the cooling options as we create some of these additional heat islands with concrete curb, gutter, sidewalks, and bike lanes, that there's some landscaping, and also looking at the lighting so that there is a safe corridor for traveling at dusk and at night. So some of these do not have lighting as well. So I know it's always a function of funding. So I'd rather have these done, but kind of think about how we might augment so that we're creating the cooling islands and also the lights.
Yeah, and just to note, you know, the descriptions are very brief, and so if it doesn't necessarily preclude us from adding those in if we, depending on what the opportunity or what an individual project is. So if, you know, just taking, for example, Chambers Creek Road Phase 2, it does just list, you know, curb, gutter, sidewalk, bike lane, both sides, intersection improvements at crossings. So that wouldn't preclude us if it needed to, as part of the project, to add a median or fit in a planter strip where we need to. Those would be, as far as, say, a grant agency looks at, those would be like, you know, auxiliary to a sidewalk or something. So we have that ability to still, you know, supplement the different improvements depending on what the financing source is.
Right. And, you know, look at the best fit to do that, and also look at the northwest and eastern part of our city that we need to augment with more trees and vegetation, and to complement what we look like in the southeast and west.
Yep, that's right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Boykin.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Hey, Jack, if I could ask you, please, obviously we're required by state law to adopt annually the 6-year transportation improvement plan, but interestingly enough, you had made reference to the mayor's question around prioritization, and it always had been a little squishy, but certainly in the past it's been far more pragmatic when we came to how we decide what projects that we were going to internally prioritize, even if we were obviously looking for best case scenarios, connect grant funding with opportunity. Given that we've got certainly federal funding formula changes, we've got at the federal level clear behavior to suggest that not only we need to figure out what to do with less, but there's intentionally less funding coming to states. It's changing our engagement, to say the least.
Yeah.
Could you expound upon how you anticipate, though, how we might look internally about what we might end up selecting as our priorities when it comes to our next iteration of 6-year transportation improvement planning?
Yeah, and it really is just because how funding keeps shrinking and becoming more and more competitive, it really will go to each individual funding program, what we would have the best chance to be successful with. Now, typically, most programs will look at things that are also important to us, so like streets that have high accident locations or streets that are, require some traffic management, or those often will rate quite high. But then other programs will maybe have a very high priority on, say there's a Safe Routes to School program that we were successful with, and that's why we now have every one of our schools connected to the sidewalk network. And those may not always be, in fact, thankfully, are not on the highest, busiest streets with the highest accident locations. But so each one, we really have to cater it to what the individual grant need is, but then once within those grants, then we typically will prioritize those based on accident locations, public comments, those sort of things. So it's kind of like a subset of prioritization with each, depending on the funding source.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. No, I'm good.
Thank you. Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question for you. On the matrix here, you have the cost by phase. And I'm just curious, since this is a 6-year plan, how often are those costs updated as far as on this matrix? I know year to year they increase quite a bit, and I'm just wondering.
So typically, well, every year, although some years we had no increases depending on how the costs were, but like this year I go through each project individually and both update what the estimated costs are and the schedule of when we think we could do them. Now this is it's a planning level estimate. It's not a detailed engineer's estimate, so it's more based on, typically there's, for the certain nature of project, we typically spend this much per half a mile or this and that. So, as we would get closer to, say, an individual application, these numbers don't really, we're not held to those numbers. If then a grant comes up and we're applying for it, then we do the detailed cost estimate, and it could be more or less than what's shown here. This is really, the intent is just to give the rough order of magnitude.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing that there's none, Jack, thank you for that update. I look forward to seeing some of those projects come to fruition as we move forward. Just transitioning, since you're there, let's go to item number 11, our arterial update ordinance. Jack, you're still on.
Yep, thanks again. Again, I'm Jack Eklund, Public Works Director. So what we have before us is a cleanup item for our municipal code. So in regard the classification of several arterial streets. Now, typically the classification of arterial streets is a two-step process. You need to get them both adopted locally in your own ordinances and regulations, but also to be eligible for state or federal money, you need to have them classified from on the federal classification system, which is actually maintained by the state. Now, fortunately for these ones that we're talking about here, the hard part's already been done. Several years ago, we already got them approved, and they're already on the federal classification map. Unfortunately, we just noticed recently that that follow-up action of getting them adopted on our own plan, for whatever reason, must have fallen through the cracks. So this action is to just kind of rectify that, close the loop, so to speak. There are the streets that are associated with this is 24th Street between Regents and 70th. And these are all all minor, none of these are major arterials. These are all the lower level collector level arterials, which is generally the lowest designation of an arterial street. It's your local street network, and then you have collector arterial, minor arterial, major, principal arterial. So 24th Street, that's that street that there's a lot of industrial, some warehouses, some businesses. It goes kind of on the side of the, where the Narrows Plaza overall complex was, all the way down to Regents. There is a bus route on that street, so that's one that we would be adopting locally. We also have 37th Street between Bridgeport and Sunset. So basically Bridgeport all the way, this 37th Street just across the street, going all the way through that. We do indicate to Sunset. That's how it's been adopted on the federal list. Currently on our TIP, we only have the portion from Bridgeport to the end of where the current road is as a planned, eventual improvement. The section that is an unopened road right now is only noted as a pedestrian connection. Doesn't mean that we wouldn't in the future still turn it into a roadway, but that was due to some concerns expressed from neighbors several years ago. And the overall priority was that's a big block of roadway without a lot of pedestrian connection through there, so there was a priority to emphasize the pedestrian connection over the roadway in that area. But we still want to make ourselves consistent with what we have in the federal list. Then we do have Drexler Drive right here between 35th and 40th, and then Larson Lane between 35th and Marketplace, so as well as Marketplace out here in front of the building. And then, so those are the streets. Now, a number of those, the reason that fell through the cracks is we, like the Drexler and the Market and some of the other ones, were adopted in the Federal Register to be able to get the funding to build the streets. But then we didn't classify them as arterials ourselves until after they were, the plan would have been until after they've been built. So like, for example, the section of Drexler that we talked about in the TIP where we're elevating the right-of-way acquisition, we have noted that already adopted on the Federal Register as a future arterial street, but we're not adopting that ourselves until we would build the street. So it's a little bit of chicken egg on some of that stuff. But so those are the streets that are involved, and then you can see what the action that will be coming back. So there's a study right now, of course, but when we come back, the action would be to adopt an ordinance that modifies section 1320.15 of the municipal code, and that's the table that lists all our various arterial streets, and then it'll just add those streets with the limits that we're adding.
I take it that pauses for questions.
Yep. Sorry.
Right. So I know you and I talked about this once before also, and I don't want to lose visibility on it because it's important to the city. Under secondary arterials, where we list Chambers Creek Road West from Steilacoom city limits to Bridgeport Way as a secondary arterial, from the Steilacoom city limits to Old Lemons Beach Road, i.e. extension of Chambers Creek Road, i.e. the beginning of Grandview, that is a designated state highway. So why would we continue to list this as a secondary arterial?
Because that's a separate designation, and so like so they still can be, they aren't mutually exclusive of each other. So the volume and the nature of the street indicates it's more appropriate to classify it as a secondary arterial. However, it doesn't diminish its significance for a regional route, because it is a significant regional route. It's one of the only routes that connect UP and Steilacoom, or it's a direct route to the Iron Base. So it's still an important route from a standpoint from the highway, and still opens up various opportunities for us from that standpoint. But it also, the volumes are low enough that they don't warrant it being classified as a principal arterial.
All right, but it does, by maintaining visibility on that, it still allows us to have additional funding when needed that you can get for a state highway that you cannot get for a arterial through a city. So
Yes.
kind of selfish to make sure that we keep all our doors open
Yes.
For the city, and that we have the opportunities when they come up for that type of funding.
Yes, correct.
So, maybe we designate that separately, I don't know, but, or
Yeah,
have some kind of footnote to it so we don't lose that visibility.
And we don't, it's a separate action altogether. It's not this, because ultimately, we don't have control, like we can't designate Drexler Drive as a state highway, right? So we have no input or control over that, and so that's not something that we can address in our municipal code. Similarly, like Bridgeport, for example, is also part of the National Highway Network because of its regional thing. We don't necessarily have control of that, so we don't designate that here, but to your point, we do make sure whenever we get the updates from the state or the various things, because sometimes they'll ask for status updates for any of these various roads, we continue to lobby that that's an important route and should be maintained on those routes.
Yeah, and, we may not have the authority to designate because it's already designated, but we do have the responsibility to maintain. And so when it comes to that, funding, it's always nice to use OPM to fund that than have us do it. And that's why that's important.
And I think, discussion we've had too, it's important to not lose sight of that, right? Because if we ever, which I think may be more possible, but we want to make sure that future folks, always keep that in sight, that we do have that as a designation. And so I'll work with Matt, just to see if there is. I don't know that this would be the appropriate place to do it, but there might be another mechanism just to make sure it's on the forefront of our minds, so to speak.
Awesome, thank you. Other questions? Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick one. When looking at this list, you have, of course, the major arterials and secondary arterials. This is kind of a follow-on to the mayor's question. Is there a financial or grant or otherwise benefit for something being on a major arterial versus being a secondary arterial versus a collector or something like that?
Yes. So generally, it depends on the grant source and what the grant is looking for. So as I mentioned, most grants would require it to be designated somehow. Now, depending on the grant itself, you may get prioritization for a primary arterial with a lot of traffic on it. A lot of times those are your bigger grant sources that are looking not only for the principal arterials, but also, traffic volumes, accidents, those sort of things. Now, there are also grant sources that do it the reverse, where they actually prioritize like a collector arterial. Often those are grant sources that are focusing on the non-motorized or transit type of improvements. So because it's been kind of recognized that sometimes those collector arterials, and they are spread around the city quite, they have you have more collectors than the principal anyway, but they are a safer and more comfortable route for those more vulnerable users. So the prioritization depends on the grant. Now, I can say the secondary arterial is always in the middle, so depending what it is. But I guess it could change, but that's what I found.
Okay, so follow on to that really quick. I'm looking specifically at 67th. It's listed here as a secondary arterial, yet it's actually the fastest, straightest way to pass through the city of UP. Would there be any benefit for us designating that as a major arterial, either to help encourage it to become one, so not all that traffic's going up and down Bridgeport if it doesn't have to? Or would there be any benefit to that?
Yeah, it changes a little bit on our standards, although most of our standards are the same for secondary to principal. We do have to pass and make sure we're meeting kind of the general criteria for it. Now, it's not, when I say general criteria, it's not like a strict level, but you have to be in the ballpark of what typically people designate as principal. But we are this year, this fall, we will be going through and updating all of our traffic counts around, and that's certainly something that we will evaluate when we kind of look at the updated counts to see if any of our streets should be reclassified to a higher level or so. So that's certainly something we can consider.
Okay, can we, and I guess there's a chicken and egg question here. If we would like to increase traffic counts in 67th, just so we take that load off of Bridgeport if it's not necessary there, is there a way to encourage that? I mean, because if the traffic count isn't there yet, we might want it to be there, you know. Do you follow my question?
Yeah, it's tricky. You know, typically traffic will follow the least, you know, as congestion builds on one street, it just has this phenomenon that either people quit traveling or they do shift to other streets. So it is difficult to control those patterns. And ultimately, Bridgeport is the most, you know, it has, the reason it's so busy is it is the direct route between, you know, Lakewood, Tacoma, Highway 16. It has the most businesses on it. It has most destinations. So it is difficult to control that. I think making the streets be able to continue to flow as well as we can and accommodate all users kind of helps everything. But we have a decent, you know, when we talk about like the grid, our grids from Bridgeport to 67th are generally pretty good. It's usually where we have the problem of our grid network is right in the heart of the city and kind of right around our commercial areas, if that makes sense.
Yep. Thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Councilmember Boykin.
Just a couple based upon Jack's comments. Hey, Jack, you said it's concentrated really for the most part in the right areas where we've got commercial engagement and up and down Bridgeport. I just thought I'd ask you a totally unrelated question about the parking fees impacts around that area. Any comment about how that's been tracking relative to cars going in, cars coming out in terms of those parking spaces? Any challenges or congestion around a marketplace, a square in that regard? Just an off-the-cuff question, just thought I'd ask.
And you're thinking specifically on the managed parking spots we have at Market Square in general?
100%, because we want essentially that the traffic patterns and impacts and counts that we're getting in those areas. So I just thought if there's an opportunity to offer a plug or some additional things that we might want to be mindful of, those type of things, if there's something that just comes to mind.
Yeah, and overall, like businesses, like they will, it's almost a little bit like, you know, Mayor Pro Tem McCluskey talked about, you know, the success of Trader Joe's, right? Businesses and Trader Joe's is an example where they love the activity and traffic and, I don't know if this is the word they would use, but almost like chaos, right? You have a lot of activity, a lot of traffic, a lot of stuff that is always viewed positively by the businesses because the more eyes on them, the more likely someone's going to come back. And so just like with our area, you know, with the parking, we do continue to see a pretty good amount of utilization of our parking. The meters themselves, and I know with we did recently, you know, we will be getting, you know, a little bit more. We have had kind of a softer hand on enforcement of the meters, and we will be starting to do a little bit more of that with the new folks. But ultimately, we're still getting that turnaround that we want to see, where before you had people camping out there all day long, and even though it looked busy, you didn't have that activity. And so we are still getting, you can go at any given time, you still see the turnaround, you see folks coming. So, and that's why when I want to caution when I'm talking about the, you know, enforcement, it's not going to be still not a very heavy hand, but we do want to, you know, address anyone that's like perpetual offenders. But overall, we are seeing still the level of activity we like to see, I guess, if that kind of long answer to your question.
No, what's really important, Mayor, if I may, is to really affirm that so that our residents and citizens begin to understand some of those traffic impacts are by design, some things we want to make sure that we're seeing, and some things we're driving very intentionally. But we're doing that strategically in cluster areas for better outcomes for the city as well as the quality of life that residents get to enjoy as a result. So just want to make sure that that wasn't missed. Then the last thing is, in terms of that traffic counts, you said that we're going to be very intentional later in the year in terms of being able to identify those traffic counts. Is there a month in mind that we should be mindful of, just so that residents can be that much more mindful of how we're handling the opportunity?
Yeah, we typically like to collect the traffic data in the fall because typically our traffic patterns still are heavily influenced by school traffic. When school is out, traffic seems to spread out a little more during the day. When school's in, a lot of our peak hours, start to lean toward the beginning and end of schools. And so we want to manage our peak hour traffic, so we'll start collecting it usually in probably late to mid-September, and then we typically try to get them done before the Thanksgiving week, because then traffic goes all wonky between Thanksgiving and Christmas, right? So we may then, if we don't get them all collected by then, we would resume it usually around mid-January, but we then avoid, like snowstorms and that sort of thing.
Yep. Okay. Thanks so much. That's all I have, Mayor.
Great, thank you so much. Any other questions? All right, Jack, great report. Thanks so much for sharing tonight. More to come. Now we'll move to item number 12, which I know most, if not all, the council has been waiting for. So, Mr. Sugg, our city manager, you're going to give us a Duck Days debrief.
Well, I've got the two experts. I've got Duck Parade Director as well as Public Works Director Jack Eklund here. And also on screen, we have Marion as remote, Holloway, our events director. So the two of them are going to give you a staff report and then open it up for council comments and feedback.
Yeah. And so, well, thank you again, Mr. Mayor and City Council. And once again, I am Jack Eklund, Public Works Director. And I am sure by this point you're tired of hearing me talk. So, but fortunately for you, as Steve mentioned, Marion's joining me up here online. And so you won't have to listen to me the whole time. Anyway, so tonight, as Steve mentioned, we are providing the debrief on our Duck Days event that we held earlier this year. Now, Emmy, if you could provide, we are going to play while we give our report. We'll be showing on the screen a series of photos that put together from our communications team. And as you'll be able to see from these pictures, that I'm happy to report that despite a little bit of rain and the threat of thunderstorms, we really did have a great turnout, both from participants and spectators, and it resulted in another successful event. Let's see. Well, and as that's getting ready there, yeah. So now this year we did have one of the highest amount of participation in the parade that, to date. We had 46 separate groups as participants in the parade. This is 10 groups higher than the previous year, and it is, I'm happy to report, in excess of what our pre-COVID levels are. So we are recovered from that, and we're going upward and onwards. Now, I do want to highlight a few things that we implemented this year that helped the parade run smoother. First of all, I'd like to commend our risk management and finance team, who always do so much of the heavy lifting for the preparation of the participants in the parade. This year they held 3 online meetings with the participants to go over what to expect, go over any rules and safety measures, provide instructions, as well as answer any questions they may have. And this effort really paid off. It greatly reduced the participant confusion and frustration and helped get the parade off to a great start. I also want to give a shout out to our parks and public works crew, as well as our police staff, in their work in managing the traffic for the event. They always show up bright and early and make sure everything is set up and in place. They kept traffic flowing as long as they could, and then when we needed to make things safe, they quickly got things closed up, and in a coordinated effort to make things safe for the participants and the spectators. And then when we could possibly safely do it to open it up. They quickly got it flowing again. And, this year we had no incidents of people, kind of getting confusion, running through the area they're not supposed to. And it was, I think, one of the smoothest transition, both from closing the street and opening up than I can remember in recent years. So good job all around to all of them. And then another thing we had, as you may recall, few days before the event, we had the notice that we were going to have a severe thunderstorm warning in our area, which thanks to the great work of both our emergency management folks and our communications team, they got a plan out there to address how do we manage the event should lightning come in and start to threaten the participants or the spectators. And they coordinated, being able to monitor the weather service and, put the word out and provide communications to folks. And the fact that we had that planning in place, now fortunately we didn't have to, the thunderstorms, missed us, so that was great. But, the plan we had in place and the communications we put gave a measured amount of relief to the concerns of the participants and spectators alike. So, for example, I know I probably had 4 or 5 parents come up to me at the beginning of the parade, and they were concerned of, okay, why are we doing this parade? What's going on with the lightning? And my kid's going to be holding a big metal saxophone in his hand as he goes up. Is he going to, what are you doing for lightning? And the fact that we could say, we're in contact with the Weather Service. We have a shelter in place for if something happens. If the lightning is within 5 miles, we will stop the parade. Having them, you could see the relief on their face just when I explained it to them that we had that plan in place, and really just great work to our emergency management and communication folks to get that going so quickly. Now, I do want to talk, with each parade there are always lessons learned, and I do want to discuss the 3 most significant ones in this case. Now, first of all, as I know you're all aware, we did have a delay with the golf carts. We added an extra layer of hecticness for the start of the parade for both council and staff, and it's definitely something that we want to avoid in the future. Now, fortunately, Marion has an excellent solution to this, but I will let her address that shortly. Before I turn it over, though, to Marion, I do want to address 2 other things. One item that continues to be a struggle for us is the pacing of the parade. So we continue to have, large gaps between groups. This is mostly caused by certain groups. Every now and then there'll be groups that maybe do a fun routine or some sort of thing where they stop in a certain place or slow down to interact with the crowd in some manner. Now, we're not suggesting necessarily discouraging that or eliminating that, because that does provide an extra level of entertainment, and it's often very appreciated by the spectators. However, looking at what other parades do, because it's not a unique phenomenon to University Place, right? Other parades will have a group do a routine or something. I mean, I guess the most famous example would be like the Macy's parade, not that I'm saying we're at that level, but there'll be a coordinated effort to basically stop the entire parade that gives an opportunity to perform a routine or play a song or do something at a designated location. But by coordinating the whole parade to pause for brief periods of time and then resume at a same level, we'll keep that so you don't have these big spaces. So this is something that we're going to continue to explore to see how that can apply to our parade. We're going to reach out to some of the other, bigger but more prominent parades in the area, and just see logistically if that can apply, because that's something we think is worth exploring, and we will definitely give you guys an update before our next one to see if that's something that can work for us. And then the third thing I want to talk about is we did have an issue this year where we had, at the very beginning of the parade, we had one of the lead groups basically decide that they ignored our Public Works direction of shifting the parade to the side closer to Market Square like we did the year before. And so there's a little bit of confusion there, but and so that ultimately it resulted in the entire parade going the old route instead of the closer one to that. So what we'll do, that's an easy fix. We're just going to make sure we add a little bit more traffic control, make it clear that that's the route to go. And so I think that's the easiest fix, but it was, I know people were wondering why we talked about the plan, it's shifting, and then it didn't end up do that. So anyway, those are the three things, but I do want to shift it over to Marion, and I know she has some other information she'd like to share with you.
We can't hear you, Marianne.
Sorry. Marion Holloway, Program Manager. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Jack did a pretty good update, so I'm going to be brief. As he mentioned, with the golf carts, we had a delay. So we had a brilliant idea that was brought forward for next year. We will rent the golf carts one day in advance, secure them in the parking garage so council can decorate them Friday or Saturday morning. And then that way, if we have any rain, they're also dry for you and ready to go. You can park in the parking garage then, and then your car will be on site at the parking garage when you need to leave. So I hope that will remedy the situation with the golf carts and the frantic decorating in the morning. But I do want to give a shout out to council and our staff that worked so fast and seamlessly to get the golf carts and the council members decorated and in the parade on time. It was awesome to see that teamwork. Thank you so much. And for entertainment this year, just to give you an update, we always bring in our regular routine entertainment that people are used to seeing. The Stillwater, Clan Gordon Pipe Band, they were awesome and people expect them now. Want to give a shout out separately to Sunset Bible Church. They have a band in the back of their truck that is basically a traveling band down the parade, and they provide entertainment through the entire parade and music. So thank you to them. They've been a great partner over the years. This year, so we always try to add some added activities, and this year we had the magician in the atrium for the kids. We had the one-man band that was shown in the images, and he was awesome. He has instruments strapped to his feet and his arms. And also, a surprise was our JBLM Bigfoot Brass Band that we were lucky to secure, kind of a last-minute ad. Turned out to be a crowd favorite, and we brought them in for the USA 250th. I hope we can bring them back, maybe for Music on the Square next year, because they were pretty well received and really fun to watch. So I think unless Jack has anything else to add, that will conclude the staff report. And I look forward to Duck Days next year, even better.
Awesome. Thank you both for that report. I know the council has lots of questions, at least so I'm told. And I just have two comments I'd like to make, and then we'll just open it up here for conversation. You know, one has to do with when we were going down Bridgeport Way, we shut the entire street down, and yet we keep half the participants, i.e. the citizens, away from the parade. So, you know, my ask is next year, since we've closed the road, the safety issues met, pull those folks from the east side of the road over to the center median so they can at least participate in the parade closer like the folks on the west side get to do versus being 2 lanes away from us and feeling pretty isolated. So that's not just a suggestion but a request. And then Jack, to your point, when you were trying to figure out how to channel, you know, folks into the opposite side, the same thing, you can rope off those those parts, so people will naturally fill that in, and then the west side at that point can become that part of the, participate from the center median. You know, it just makes it for a little more cozy, and it allows people on both sides of the street to participate, you know, in the parade, watching it. The other thing you mentioned was this pausing and spacing, and how do you fix that problem? And I will tell you, having been in parades for 30 years in different cities, it's always there. It always will be. You can try everything you can. You can't fix that. You know, you just try to encourage people to keep moving, but you're going to have those, especially like marching bands. They've got their routine. You've got your baton twirlers. Sometimes they've got their routine. You know, the crowd still loves it. I think what you're trying to get to is, you know, you're going to have spacing, but maybe not to have a lot of spacing where half the parade is still back there and half the parade's already done. So, you know, that's obviously work in progress, but I wouldn't say get frustrated over it. It's the nature of the beast when it comes to parades, and people here obviously love their Duck Days parade. So thanks. Okay, floor is open. Questions, comments? Councilmember Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a simple suggestion, Mr. Eklund, and that is the Snowflake Parade in Bellevue. You might want to talk to those folks that do a very good job at pausing the whole parade, because they do a lot of little skits, and everybody just stops. Otherwise, it will be really disastrous what you're talking about. So you might want to talk to those folks. They do a really great job. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Grassi.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Marion, this is cruel and unusual to make you do this the day after a big, successful movie in the park. So I'm sure you're still on cloud nine from that. But thank you to your team, and thank you to Mr. Eklund for this great, safe event and always a highlight. I'm just going to move through my list, if that's okay. 46 participants. Do we know how many of those were campaigns and elected officials? I love our elected officials, but they're not as exciting to be in a parade, and so I would want to make sure that we're not skewing that number. You know, we have UP school campaign and different levies contributing to that number, and it always feels like that's growing each year. So I hope we still have enough participants to outweigh that.
Yeah, and we definitely can get you the statistics on that. This year we did have fewer of those than the previous year, so probably where the election cycles fell, but which to me was a good sign, since we had 10 more groups this year than the previous year and fewer of the the politicals type of stuff. So, but we definitely can get that for you. It's a challenge to be able to discourage it, or
I don't think we should discourage it. I just think it's a great way to combat, to always know I don't want to go against the First Amendment, but I it'd just be great to have in our heads that's kind of a numbering acts, and I'm not sure how that works when you check in, but I would love to see a clear designated tent that says check in here with a participant number for each group, and make sure that every group has a participant number. As a participant and organization, they don't know when they're supposed to go, then they get separated from their vehicle and the walking group when they want to be with their vehicle. And I feel like if they have a vehicle and they have a walking group, I know that we have safety concerns, but they need to be together. Group 5 should be with group 5. Does that make sense? If they have a car and they have that, it's just, otherwise you have the walkers of a campaign and then you have the car of a campaign, and it's just, and for other things. So I really feel like there should be a clear signage at that tent at the church where you check in, participant check in here, so it's clear where to go, and then each participant given a number to walk with.
One thing I do want to just note this year, and I think I credit Leslie and her group and Grace for all the prep work they did. We had much more of that frustration from folks in the past about not being able to walk with their vehicle. And because they had all those meetings and they explained why the safety concern was and what was going on, we got very little of that pushback from those groups, right?
Yes.
And so I think This year was one of the better ones with that from a logistics standpoint. But, you know, we want to continuously kind of evaluate the safety and how we can, because we want to be able to accommodate as much as we can. And so we'll continue to look at those, but obviously we do need to make sure we're doing it in a safe way.
Yeah, I'm just, you know, the other parades seem to figure it out. So I feel like we should be able to work on it. I would love, again, these are ideas that I've given before and I've gotten shot down before, but I'm going to give it my college try again because I never give up. So senior cars participating, I'd love to have an invitation to those that are graduating seniors to have a car in the parade, Curtis and our other high schoolers. Local car collectors, we have lots of people that have car collectors in the city. I think they'd love to show off their parade. The more eye candy in the parade, the better. I'd love to see the loop, I'm just going to go rapid fire, parade loop around as another option. I know the mayor alluded to having them come back onto the median, but I also think it might be an interesting idea to just have them loop back so we can, no one has said, oh, that parade was too long. If anything, they've said, oh, it's over already. Could we go up and loop them right back around to where they started? Everyone's back at their starting point where their car is, and both sides get to enjoy the parade. I think you put a lot of work into those parades and kids getting ready a little longer. I don't think would hurt anybody. Best in Show competition, the Gig Harbor Parade that happens on the same day as ours, they have a Best in Show award. People really get decked out to be in that parade and gives them some more pride in the acts that they're putting together. Best Dressed in Yellow in the parade option competition, also to have a rally point at the end at the stage. I want to thank Rotary for doing the Duck Days treasure hunt before. That was a huge success. That really captured the spirit of the community before. I would love to see them to do that again. I'd love us to also explore the use of city cars more of our our cars to be involved, public works cars. We could decorate those as well. Again, more eye candy. I love the fact that we're going to have the golf carts the night before. I think that's wonderful. I still go back to the affordability of it. I feel like we really lost a great partner in our Corvette Club that for years sustained us with having council members in those Corvettes. They were there, they were pretty, they were exciting, and they were free. And to save us the amount of money now to then add to the rental cost of another day, I think that we should be really thoughtful about that because they were a valued partner. And so now not only are we taking that away, but now we're adding more dollars to a rental for overnight for our convenience, and I think there's a better way that we could do it. We could also ask for Crest Golf and Country Club if we really want to borrow some golf carts, talk to the executive, Mello, like the mayor alluded to see what Chambers Bay could do, but it saddens me that we lost that partnership and it's cost the city dollars. So I've said enough about that. But booths also in the park. I also think as we've expanded our footprint, it's so jam-logged in here. It's great activity. The crowds are great. But to explore the idea of having some booths in Homestead Park again like we used to have, I think might be an interesting idea for local businesses or vendors that want to be out there. The Kids Makers Market that was fabulous at Movie in the Park. There's the playground there. Maybe the Kids Makers Market want to be out there in the park and then have the other vendors here in Town Square. I think that might be everything I have. I'm sorry for the rambling, but I love this event. I think a lot of work goes into it. Marion, you do such a great job. Everyone, the team does a great job. It's a signature event, and I would just love to see it level up if we could. So thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Awesome. Great comments. Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem.
All right. Thank you. This event is always, like Melanie, Councilmember Grassi has indicated, our signature event into the summer event season. So, the big splash, the big yellow, and your team works really hard to do that. So kudos to your team and all the extra coordination that you do, and also looking as how you can improve the event marching on. And I do appreciate you having an open mind, hearing some of these other things that could possibly make it even better, because it can never be good enough, right? We always can do better and make it more exciting. And I I do concur with Councilmember Grassi's indication for eye candy to look at things, as you had indicated, the entertainment factor of the parade, to keep that growing and vibrant and alive with the theme of the duck and the daffodils and yellowing it up. And to also, to highlight the Rotary that did the duck passport, to also maybe encourage that to grow with the local businesses so they could start yellowing up, as we had that proposal for Quack It Up. So more on that to come as well.
Good.
I would like to invite the Corvette Club back. But I tell you what, I love decorating my golf cart. That's a lot of fun. And I'm getting quite the collection of golf cart decor now. So, and every year I add to that. And so just to keep that fun factor going in it, and that level of curiosity, like, what's left, what is next, because I think that will bring out more generational crowds to the parade, as they also talk to other people about their experiences at the parade. We'll get people that maybe have never experienced the parade but live in our city, get them to come out and see what's happening on that Saturday. So thank you. That's all my comments.
Great, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a few comments. First, Councilmember Grassi, more or less what she said. That's number one. But I appreciate it. There's a lot of very good ideas in there. But I do really like the idea of having stage spots. Mm-hmm. I think you should pursue that one. It may not fix all our problems. Totally agree with the mayor on that one. But I like the idea of having a set performance spot, or maybe more than one, so that people can know, hey, we can crowd here and we're going to see a performance. I participated in the DuPont parade recently, supporting a friend of mine, and they actually issued participant numbers, and they had everybody line up in order, and they did intermix vehicles with people. And
what parade was that you say again?
What's that?
What parade was it again?
DuPont.
DuPont, okay.
Yeah. So how they did it, why they did it that way, no, they weren't chucking candy either, but they definitely had people lined up with their vehicles, and they had them pre-staged on a side road, which I don't know if that would work for us here necessarily, but everybody staged in order and then just was able to move out with what they were doing. And then finally, I've mentioned this before off to the side to staff, but I would like us to look into the strength of our physical barriers to the parade route. I'm just concerned because every few months I see in the news there's another crazy guy driving a van down a parade route, and it's a very easy thing to fix as far as vulnerability. You just put in physical barriers that can't be moved by a vehicle on all the access points, and you can find some of those very inexpensively overall. I would just like us to look at that, or we could park vehicles or do more, but I would just like to know that our parade area is secure during those kinds of events. Make me feel a little better.
We did increase that, but it still didn't appear enough from your perspective.
What I saw, there's some areas that were definitely, like on the main road itself, obviously things were well blocked off. I'm more concerned about side street access and how protected those were. And they may have been better protected. I just didn't get the feedback I had asked for. So I'd just like to follow up on that one.
Yep.
And that concludes my comments, Mayor.
I think those are great comments. Thank you. Jack, I do recall when we came around the bend towards the fire station on Bridgeport Way, I don't recall barriers on Bridgeport Way. I saw a lot of folks, but I didn't see any protective barriers.
There should have been the vehicles. I think we had 2 public works vehicles straddling the street, but I'll make sure we double check that. Yeah. And then also, I think it's, we'll get back and report to you where are we stationing them, and then we can help kind of review that ahead of time. If are there places and vulnerabilities we want to enforce, reinforce that. I think that's a good idea.
I want to just point out again, our our staff, Marion and everyone else does, Public Works does a great job, a phenomenal job in bringing out the best and creating that celebratory environment that we all get all jazzed and jazzed up about. But I think the comments that you've heard tonight from council are heartfelt, and they're very well taken. And I hope that in planning ahead that we can take all those into account, because I think there's value to be added to that. I know we struggle, Matt, I've heard you many times, we struggle over the candy issue and people with vehicles, but in my little way of thinking in my head, UP is the best, and we've got the best knowledge, we've got the best expertise. If DuPont can figure it out, if Stillicum can figure it out, if Gig Harbor can figure it out, there is not a reason on this planet why University Place can't figure it out. So, the challenge, I think, to the staff is that take note of what our surrounding communities do and see how we can do that better so that, everyone can have that added excitement, if you will. I know this year one of the things that I paid real close attention to was the number of kids that lined that street with their little bags hoping they were going to get something tossed at them or given to them as they walked down the road there. I also think that I do want to echo the comments that others have made about the loss of the Corvette Club. I think it was a big mistake on our part, and I'll admit that right up front. But I think we can do better with that, and we should circle back to that one and revisit it. And then for the other activities out there, having I guess you call it the parade bling that you're referring to down there. And, I think there's a lot to be said about that, putting that additional little touch on what we do in what I consider one of the coolest parades around. But, take all those comments, but know that you guys have done and continue to do a great job with that. Sure. Are there any other comments before we move on?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Boykin. Oh, I'm sorry. And we'll get Councilmember Cunningham right after that. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I just want to fully appreciate the willingness of the innovation and the creativity to take first chair. It is really easy as people do things tomorrow very similarly to what they did yesterday, which somewhat defines their present. And so if we aren't, to some of the comments that have been alluded to, really intentional about how is it that we could make another level up opportunity, we might miss just some really great experiences that there are a number of people who would love for us to lean into. I think the things that really could drive this approach can give us not an either or, but more of both and. Because in the logistics, there can be a scenario where we're very intentional about stopping the parade. In the logistics, we can be very intentional about ensuring that whether it's a prelude to Crack It Up, that the business community has a much more pronounced footprint, an opportunity to engage volunteers very differently, so that we've got a better special experience that we're driving, because we're that much more intentional about seeing how can we comprehensively bring the whole community into this staple event that we all love so much. And the safety aspect that's also been addressed, it is profound for us to anticipate, or not to anticipate, that there's going to be great days ahead where we can be very intentional about how we protect citizens, how we protect ourselves when it comes to events that we know are becoming bigger and bigger, because the luring factor that we're so intentional about is there. And in that regard, just being mindful about leveling it all up is just a really good way for us to not miss the quality of life that we can drive for everybody and keep UP more and more special. I just want to make sure that all the things I've heard, including whether or not we consider a different route, make sure that it's an opportunity that we move people to better spaces. The intimacy could create challenges for us, but the idea that we're trying to make it more intimate for them, to better position them to be closer to the actual action, if you will. Being mindful that perhaps doing a loop creates everybody having a front row seat at some time in the parade very differently, but also being really mindful that everybody's going to take that great experience and say, I'm just so glad I'm here enjoying all of this. So I just think centering the logistics as a way to ensure that we're going to gain improvement exponentially is the first way that we can be a very different payoff for all the things that we love about the parade. And then lastly, when it comes to the candy, since it is such a long-standing tradition, whether you agree to it's always had a thread or not, again, it can be a both and. We can figure out how, if we must get more candy into the hands of kids and us adults that really like candy, sorry about that, Dennis, that really like candy, I mean, we could very well figure out a way, again, to have a both and. So I just like the conversation. I just hope that you appreciate and think about it in a way that all these ideas could be really impactful to have a much better experience for our entire community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Cunningham.
Yeah, so I mean, I think my colleagues have all said great things. I think my one thing is just about the pacing. I think that our pacing is pretty significant to where people think it's over, and then it's not. It's like a full halftime. And I think that to create more fullness, I think that we need to market the opportunity to enter the parade a lot sooner. Everybody knows it's an annual event, so I think that month and some change turnaround is hard. We always leave people out. There's always new people coming here that don't realize it's an opportunity, and I think that I know our bandwidth is slim, but I do think it creates better partnership if we were to circle back with those that we know continuously participate in the parade, reaching out to them, letting them know that it's coming up. Do you want to enter again? Just creating more of that fullness. I think that, if we're going to be a full city, the expectation of all of our commissions participating into the parade, I think, is important to show exactly who we all are beyond just the council and the staff. So I think that should be some level of an expectation for all the commissions, especially because it's a way to engage. And then we have this new Arts and Culture Commission coming up. So just to advertise and promote what that looks like. The recreation with YMCA, let's put those kids in there with their branding and let the Y know this is what we do and this is what we're hoping that you can participate in. Just those habitual people that tend to participate, just reminding them. I mean, we have no problem partnering with the school district. So as Councilmember Grassi alluded to, why everyone graduates every single year. So let's, reach out and connect. And, I think that there's something to be said about just reaching out to those that are constantly always part of it to remind them that it is. There's new organizations forming every day. So I think that we should that'll help. I mean, I think the 10 additional groups was great, but we could probably have a lot fuller parade, and we have a long strip, and there's smaller towns doing it better than us, and I think that that's not cool. So I think that there's ways of being able to make that more of a staple, because it's been around for decades, and so they know that it exists. But I think that reminding people and circling back would help us. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing that there's none, Jack, Marion, thank you so much. I hope you got a lot of notes there. A lot of great ideas.
All right, thank you.
All right. With that said, we'll move to item number 13. I want to remind council that we're going to be in summer retreat, so there is no meeting after this in the month of August. So if it's on your calendar, delete it. And seeing that there's no further business before council, the council will stand adjourned.
I hope Mari's okay. I hope Mari's okay.
Have a great.
Find out.